What's that? Good morning. It's past 10 o'clock, and before we start our meeting, we are one country. We're all one country under one flag. So I'd ask everybody to please rise and recite the pledge. I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I remind everybody that even though you have your differences, we are one country. And thank you for standing. We'll convene the Board of Elections at this time. We'll ask for the minutes of the September 6th meeting to be approved.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
At this time, we're going to have public comment on agenda items only. Before we start this, we have a very, very large crowd today. If you go to number 5, we have one issue we're talking about today on the agenda, and that is to take action on the board's decision to place a referendum on the November 2022 general election ballot to continue the use of electronic voting system and any pending petitions on the issue. So I would ask that you would limit your comments to the action on the agenda, and that you would keep your comments at 3 minutes. So 1 second, please. Before we do that, we're going to go out of order here. We're going to go to number 4, and then we'll come back to public comment. We have a revised proposed temporary polling place change for Loyalsock Township, 1st Precinct. Forrest?
Right. So this has come about because I was contacted by the normal facility for Loyalsock 1st Precinct, St. Luke's, 1400 Market Street. They are undergoing construction, projected to be undergoing construction during the election. Their HVAC will be down. They would not have heat that day. Consequently, we're looking to do a temporary polling place change just for the November 8th general election. We are going to co-locate the 1st Precinct with the 2nd Precinct, which votes just down the road at the Step Center for Healthy Aging. That is right near the intersection of North Way and 4 Mile Drive. They've got a good room, a good facility there that's worked out for the 2nd Precinct for a few years now. I met with the judges out there and the facility representatives from STEP and the township, actually. And we've got a plan worked out for each precinct to use part of the room. They're going to have enough space. And if this temporary change is approved, we will send letters to all of the households, actually in both precincts, to give them guidance as to what it's going to look like that day, where to go in, that kind of thing. And also the old polling place will be posted for that election to remind people to go to the new location. So we will take a number of steps to make sure the public's informed of the change.
Forrest, you would also, I assume, do press releases
Yes,
to all the
absolutely.
media? Okay.
Yes, there would be a press release. It would go on the voter services site. It will be reflected in the advertising. Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to take the action necessary regarding Loyalsock Township 1 precinct with regard to a temporary polling place.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried.
Thank you.
Before we start with public comment, we're going to set the background of what's happened since last week when we voted place on the ballot. Commissioner Wiley received a phone call from the Department of State. You want to go into that phone call briefly, and then the letter we received.
Sure. Following the meeting, I received a phone call from Chief Counsel for the Department of
Can you use
State.
the microphone a little bit more, please?
I have it on. I can move it forward.
Talk into it. Don't
Yes.
keep your mouth 18 inches away.
Please.
Actually, sir, I'm behind a column. You may
Doesn't
not be able to see me, but it is already within the 18 inches that you've requested.
That's a lot better, Mike.
All right, thank you. It must have just kicked in. So we received a telephone call from the Chief Counsel for Department of State inquiring about the action that was taken. There was some discussion about the matter, which then resulted in a letter that was sent to the county from the state.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, public comment, please limit to 3 minutes.
Before you start, just, we had a 3-hour meeting, our last meeting? Was it? Okay. And we absolutely understand all your arguments. We heard them. And I want you to pay close attention to number 5 on the agenda. If you want to reiterate what you said on that last meeting, you can. I'm not going to, shut you up. But, we know what you asked for, and we voted in favor of it. So, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Karen DeSalvo. Last week, you accepted a petition that we filed on behalf of 3,383, almost 3,400 Lycoming County voters, which requested that a question regarding the use of voting machines be placed on the ballot in November so that the people could decide whether to keep using machines or whether to go back to hand counting the paper ballots that we already use. Challenges were presented to that petition. The first challenge involved a cover sheet, including language that said voting machines instead of electronic voting systems. On Friday, I filed a revised cover sheet before the expiration of the 60-day deadline, modifying that language and turning in a few more petition signatures. To date, 3,392, just a few short of 3,400, Lycoming County voters have spoken to this issue. A challenge was also raised to the wording that was used in our petition. Essentially, it was stated that the wording was not clear, so I'd like to read that language from the petition to you. By signing this petition, I am stating that I want Lycoming County to discontinue the use of voting machines, including tabulators and scanners, and want this issue to be placed on the ballot in November. The argument was asserted, well, statutory language matters with regard to the language in the cover sheet. That was why I filed my modified cover sheet. When Forrest said our petition was not in its proper format, however, strict statutory interpretations apparently no longer applied. His basis for claims that our petition was not properly formatted were based first on a referendum submitted by a local prominent Democrat operative a few years ago. That was placed up on the screen for all of us to view. I guess that was the gold shining standard for referendums. Forrest said we were not in compliance because with the rules regarding nomination petitions, Nomination petitions are petitions for people who are running for office. This was not a nomination petition. If words matter, they should matter across the board, not just when it suits your position. When we formatted our petition, we were guided by the language of the statutes that we were filing under. We asked people if they were registered to vote in Lycoming County. We asked them where they lived. We asked them to indicate whether they voted in the last general election, the last municipal election, to make sure that we provided you with everything that was necessary under the statutory framework. All of this is essentially immaterial, however, because you stepped up and bravely voted on your own motion, regardless of any alleged deficiencies, to place the issue on the ballot for the people to vote on. And we are very, very grateful for that. But we are back here today. Why? Because the Department of State wants to challenge what we are doing. They are claiming that it violates the Help America Vote Act and a Pennsylvania Supreme Court case called the Kuznick case. HAVA was enacted as a reaction to the events that occurred in Florida in the 2000 general election, the hanging chads. HAVA requires that a compliant voting system be used for federal elections. So what's compliant? I provided you all with these provisions that I'm going to read from today. Compliant, according to 301B, says a state or jurisdiction that uses a paper ballot voting system meets the requirements of HAVA, with the caveat that you train people on how to fill out that paper ballot and you provide a machine that's accessible to the disabled. The Kuznick case dealt with the interplay between HAVA and the provisions that brought us before you, the requirement that you place a question on the ballot to bring in or discontinue the use of electronic voting equipment in our county. Essentially, the Kuznick case dealt with Westmoreland County loved those levered voting machines. That's what it came down to. They wanted to keep those levered voting machines. HAVA was enacted because of the hanging chads that developed from those levered voting machines. So they wanted a new system to be put in place. Alternatives are available. You can use an electronic system under HAVA. You can use a paper system under HAVA. Westmoreland County, that case, the Kuznick case, they wanted to keep those levered machines. So they wanted to use a HAVA compliance system for federal elections. They wanted to use their levered machines for state and local elections. And so basically what the court said was that, and I only have 3 minutes, so I'm trying not to get into the intricacies of the case. What I will say is this, I'll boil it down to this. The Department of State is mischaracterizing the law when it comes to HAVA, and they are mischaracterizing the law when it comes to the Kuznick decision. That's the bottom line. If you do want to say, okay, Kuznick stands for the proposition that we no longer need to use a referendum to get the voting machines out of our county, we don't have to have people vote on it in Lycoming County. If you believe that, because that's the position that the Department of State has made, well, you have a couple of alternatives. So your first alternative is, if you don't have to put it on the ballot, do it on your own. So withdraw the resolution that was signed last week and immediately vote to get rid of the machines. You have the ability to do that if you buy the interpretation of the Department of State. Alternatively, you could do something else that we suggested here during our last hearing. If you want to keep your machines, fine. But those machines on election night are the unofficial tally. Hand count those paper ballots. If the hand count matches the machine count, wonderful, beautiful. That's our official tally. That's all we want. We want transparency in our elections. And I want to tell you a few more things. I know I'm running out of time, but you have the ability to do this under the law. Title 25, Section 2642F gives you the power. And there are other counties that are doing this. So Nye County in Nevada, Jim Marchant spearheaded that. I spoke to him on the phone the other day. I asked him, did you have any interference because of HAVA? He said, absolutely not. You're allowed to use paper systems, and that's exactly what they did. They provide one machine for the disabled voters. They went to hand-counted paper ballots. They're doing it in a small town in Colorado. Actually, there are 6 states where Republican lawmakers are trying to usher in, I'm all out of place on my notes, trying to usher in state law that basically says, okay, in 6 states, lawmakers have introduced legislation that would require that all election ballots be counted by hand. Those states are New Hampshire, Arizona, Colorado, Missouri, Washington, and West Virginia. You have the ability to do this. And we would ask that you not allow the Department of State to push you around. This is yet again an example of bureaucrats at the Department of State trying to take the power away from the people. Don't let them do it. the Biden regime gained control of this country, we have seen unprecedented attempts by the federal government to take the power from the people, closing down our businesses, making our children cover their faces, forcing people to choose between feeding their families and shots they don't want to take. We've seen state agencies attempt to take power from school boards, from commissioners. You stand in the gap. You are not elected to rule over us. You were elected to be our voices. 3,392 people in this county, voters of this county, are asking for your bravery. We stand behind you and against the state bureaucrats who are attempting to subvert the voices of the people in this county. We know the difficult position that you are in. We appreciate your bravery. You are leading the way in Pennsylvania. You are showing other counties how to do it. You signed your resolution to preserve the voting materials from the November 2020 election, and 9 other counties followed suit. You can do this today, and you will set the standard for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is exactly how our system is supposed to work. Local action equals national impact. This is how we take back our country. Please, please stand strong.
Karen, I'll let you go 5 minutes because you're basically the spokesperson for the group.
I appreciate that. Thank
Okay?
you.
And Jeff, I'll allow you, because you're a spokesperson for the group, you two are co-spokespersons, I'll allow you 5 minutes too.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'll be
Why not
brief.
3? You're crowded.
No, I'll be
That's
brief.
Excuse me, anyone who interrupts the process here, it speaks out of turn, it causes a disturbance, okay? We're gonna warn you one time, and then I'm gonna ask the sheriff to ask you to leave if it continues. We wanna keep an orderly meeting. There's no problem with applauding, but we're not gonna have any outbursts from the audience. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. There are a lot of new faces here today, and I just want to recap and stay focused on what's transpired over the months. This has been a long, grueling process, and we really appreciate the people that have showed up to all the meetings. We appreciate the people as well that are here today. This is good government in action. And many, many months ago, after the election, we were told shortly after the last election that there's likely to only be one more meeting of the election board between now and the next election. I think we're up to 6 or 8. We're very grateful, and please, please understand that these commissioners have been extremely proactive, and they deserve a lot of credit for doing what they're doing. This has been a community effort, and I believe that it has pulled our community together as opposed to pushing us apart. And I think that should be the message today, that we want to help you guys get to a decision. And I want to get back to the focus of our efforts. Our efforts were never to diminish the role of the election service, the director of elections, the people who work there, the people that work the polls. We are extremely appreciative of that. I think there was a little crossfire and there may have been misunderstandings. And, to some extent, the messengers kind of got shot at. They got caught in the crossfire. But I'm sure everybody in this room supports the efforts of our voter services, the people who carry out the tasks on behalf of the commissioners. That's not the message. The message here is that we want to put a process after the last elections. We feel and have felt that the confidence of the voters in Lycoming County has been undermined. And our efforts are to help the commissioners, help our community walk into a solution that restores the confidence of our voters in Lycoming County. And that's why we feel it's going to take some extraordinary measures to get us back to where we need to be as a community and to set an example for the rest of our Commonwealth and our country. So we're very grateful for the dialogue, and we're very grateful for the sacrifice of everybody that's been at all these meetings and the time it's taken. Again, I'm going to tell you, we are very, very, very fortunate in Lycoming County, and I think we all need to acknowledge the benefit we have by being able to have this dialogue. I feel like we're coming to the conclusion of all our efforts. I really do feel that today is going to conclude our efforts, and again, we're very thankful. Please know, commissioners, that if you choose to move forward with a bold policy that institutes the will of the residents and all the interests of all the voters in Lycoming County. This is not a partisan issue. This is a voter confidence effort, an attempt to restore confidence, checks and balances, good government. Know that you will have the support. You will have the support of the majority of your community. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Sir, you'll be next, okay? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Alan Kaplan,
Thank you.
and I'm a retired person, but I did look at what is presently available to describe the Lycoming County voter system. And the voter system is a wonderful system compared with what we used to have. We had mechanical machines, of which I was partially responsible when I was an employee here at the county as a technical person with the planning department. And the voting machines were a constant problem. We had a huge staff running around, replacing machines, fixing machines. That people would never understand exactly how to turn all the little mechanical things, and they had to have these huge monster things delivered on dump trucks and platforms and lifts. Anyhow, we went to a system that was much better. The old system had no ballot that could be looked at, recounted, questioned, or anything. The present system has a dual capability. Number one, all ballots are marked on paper. The paper ballots are kept. The paper ballots are kept for about 2 years, minimum. And when there's a question, as in the last election, they're kept longer. They can be kept as long as the commissioners determine that. So they can be recounted, they can be counted, they can be audited, they can all the different evaluations. In addition, as you turn in your ballot, it's run through a scanner immediately. As you're watching, it is scanned. So not only have you kept the ballots on paper, but you have this wonderful system that it's secure, not connected to any network, and it stores all the images. So if there's a question, then the images are available for review, audit, or any other kind of evaluation that's necessary. My purpose in stating this is that any issue that's presented on the ballot should indicate that you have a dual system, and the system records all things in 2 ways, at least.
Thank you.
So that's something that I think should be indicated so that when we vote, we can see that.
Thank you. You'll be after him, sir.
My name is Steve Moodler. I'm from Nippenose Township.
My old English teacher.
Thanks, Jeff. I didn't teach English. That's all right.
That's your first
A
one.
little levity. Good for the day.
Good to see you.
I've been here for the June presentation and the August presentation. Considerable time in June was given to the presentation of a little more than 30, I believe, affidavits, an explanation of how they came about. Of the, I believe, 48 affidavits that you received in your binder. First question that came to my mind after that, being a numbers person, is how many of these interviews were conducted? Ms. DeSalvo perhaps can answer that question. But you need that information. 48 affidavits out of 71,256 voters in this county is less than 0.3%. If you are willing to extrapolate a fraud issue from that low a percentage, we'll get back to that. I am glad to see the commissioners taking the time to deliberate on this issue rather than a knee-jerk response. When I left that first presentation, I was kind of impressed with the presentation, but further review raised issues in my mind. At the second presentation that I attended, those 48 affidavits were addressed by Voter Services. Not individually, but they did say, and not in detail, I will say that. But those 48 definitely need to be tracked down and straightened out. I understand the concern about that, but it's not going to swing an election. At that second meeting, I left the meeting with the feeling that the referendum was inevitable, partly because of the presentation Ms. DeSalvo made regarding the law. But on closer inspection of that statute, the 10% requirement is to institute electronic voting, not to remove it. Incidentally, and I believe this has been addressed, we do not use voting machines. We have not used voting machines since 2019. The touch screens, remember them? We use tabulators. We have a copy, a hard copy of all the ballots. And it's my understanding that of our 81 precincts, at least 3, maybe 5, are hand counted each election. Forrest could verify that. That's a much higher percentage to verify the machines than this less than 0.3% of the affidavits. Statistically speaking, 4 or 5 precincts hand counted, recounted, and that in that way verifying the machine's accuracy is much stronger to represent all 81 precincts. We now have the best of both worlds. I was particularly impressed by the presentation of the poll workers at the last meeting. They pointed out the steps that need to be taken by them to ensure voter integrity, that the voter is who they say they are. Finally, maybe Ms. DeSalvo could explain to me how removing the voting machines will address the issues of the 48 affidavits. I'm not seeing it. A difficulty with accurate registration of voters is not going to be addressed by removing voting machines. And that's up to you, gentlemen.
Could you state your name for the record again?
Oh, Steve Mutler, M-U-T-H-L-E-R. It's not spelled like it's pronounced.
My name is John Sharman, Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania. I have been a poll worker, I've been an observer, and I've seen how these machines are set up. The question was wanting the voter machines out of Lycoming County. How many of you are willing to take your computers out of your homes and not use them for automatic banking? You trust that, but yet with these machines you aren't trusting anybody because it didn't come out your way. But anyhow, personally think that people should, for how Forrest was picked on and everything, should apologize to him for the work that he has done and what the poll workers do, because in a backhanded way, you're saying people like myself, Forrest, and others with the voting machines are dishonest. We're doing something wrong, and you're addressing Democrats. I have my say, please.
Let him talk, please.
With it, I've seen Democrats, Republicans, and independents work together to make it an honest machine, honest ballots here with everything. And there's one thing that's not pointed out with all this, and the gentleman up here pointed out the accuracy of the machines and everything else. Tallies are the election tallies are not official for 1 week. They go through, they test, they do, and they go over ballots, any problems. But if you'll notice, elections are not confirmed or certified until about 1 or 2 weeks after the election. And those people that are over in voter registration and the people, county employees that come in and work on those machines are certainly not sitting around with their thumbs up their butt. Thank you for, I commend the commissioners what they've done. But you've got to draw the line someplace here, because there's too many other problems as a county we have with the airport and other things. That you can't waste a lot of time on this anymore.
Election integrity.
John O'Neill, Upper Fairfield Township. I took a little bit different direction when I heard that the state took an interest in what was going on here in Lycoming County. I questioned as to why they would take such an interest. Well, I came up with a couple of reasons. Pennsylvania had 30 to 35 organizations access the voter files. And here are some examples of those groups: Twitter, Planned Parenthood, Voter Voices, Pennsylvania Stand Up, Next Generation, AFL-CIO. None were from the right. Pennsylvania government refuses to release what voter files were released and what type of access was granted. There were between, I've got two figures from my sources on this. 121,000 more votes were cast in Pennsylvania than registered voters. The difference between Biden and Trump was 80,565. 10% of those 121,000 came from Philadelphia. I got other figures that were 203,000 were cast beyond registered voters, but yet our election was still certified. Before 2020, we had a absentee ballot, which I had participated in quite a bit because I work out of town. But all of a sudden, before 2020, we had no excuse, absentee. They began counting the absentee votes in 2020 on election day. So that didn't give any opportunity for the votes to be cross-referenced as to which people voted in person and also sent in a ballot. 10,000 aliens were registered, and we know this through the motor vehicle department because they were applying for citizenship or visas, and if they were found out to be voting in a election, they would be deported and lose their opportunity. They sent letters back to the DMV. There were 10,000. That came from the state. My favorite one though is Judith Pristo. She's the first known dead person in Pennsylvania to register to vote. Prosecution is pending. But I mean, my information came from newspapers, watchdog groups, news programs, and the Pennsylvania Department of Motor Vehicles. We can't do anything about Montgomery County, we can't do anything about Allegheny County, but we know there were shenanigans going on during this election. The only thing we can do anything about is Lycoming County. If we address this, we find out there's nothing wrong, that's fine. Or excuse me, if we find something wrong, we can address the problems. If we don't find anything wrong, Forrest is a rock star.
Thank you.
Bob Wallace, Loyalsock Township. One of the things, first of all, thank you, Mr. Lehman. You are a tremendous asset to this county. In all that I have heard and all that I have read, there has been no proof, absolutely no proof, of any fraudulent voting here in Lycoming County. I have never felt my vote was not being counted, and still don't. The only one who brought that up and threatened us was a former president who has created more trouble than anything in this country. I think there is no reason for us to put this on the ballot when we have a system that has two ways to look at our votes and make sure our votes are protected. It is very important. The integrity of the election is one of our greatest importances that we have. And I believe that is already being taken care of here. Instead of tearing down Mr. Lehman, I think we should be thanking him for his integrity and for the integrity of the voting system here in Lycoming County. And I just don't understand that we're continuing this when we know the only fraud that has come up from the 2020 election has been from the former president. Thank you.
Darlene Little, Old Lycoming Township, Precinct 1. I voted in Oregon, California, Michigan, and here. I voted under the system that you described where you punch the screen and pray to God that it goes through. And I've seen the system that's in place now with the ballots. I've been a poll worker as a minority inspector, and I have worked with Republicans and Democrats. We have fun, but we darn well sure check out who is voting, making sure their signature matches. And I want to ask the commissioners, when a young woman comes in and says to me, "Oh my gosh, I got married. My maiden name was X. I think I'm still registered under that." Oh, well, sorry, you can't vote. Is that what you want me to say? The system that we have now is excellent. Excellent. There's a paper ballot, for goodness sake. Excellent. And how much did those voting machines cost you? I mean, obviously, you putting up the money to buy those voting machines, and now, because of less than whatever percent people are complaining and paranoid, you're going to say, oops, well, that was money down the drain. Let's just go back to 1955, and there will be a lot of people who will be able to vote then. I think I forgot to turn that video.
It's okay.
So, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Brenda Oberheim, Montoursville. So I would like to start by telling the commissioners personally thank you for hearing us and for being willing to vote yes last week. We really appreciated that. And also, no one is accusing Forrest Lehman of doing anything inappropriate. I do wish that he would have supported, us going back to just the paper ballots, I wish that that was something that he had said, yes, that could be done, but that didn't happen. So that's why we were petitioning the commissioners to do that. And as for people that don't think that we don't understand the dangers of the tabulators, we fully understand the tabulators and the dangers of them. Mr. Marabito spoke at length last meeting, and he said, oh, it's tabulators, it's just tabulators, it's not machines. We covered all of our bases with that petition, machines, tabulators, that we wanted it all gone, and we covered our bases so that no one could stick anything else in there that we didn't want in there, or that the people that were signing the petition didn't want either. And there were 3,390. A lot of them work and they can't make it to these meetings, but those people signed a petition saying they wanted exactly that. Why? Because they did not trust the last election and what happened. Whether it be those 48 people, that were canvassed, whether it be the extra voters, whatever the problem is, there was a few different problems, and I believe that our election was compromised in a few different ways. And the election machine / tabulator is just one of those ways. So is it just those 48 people, that said something was wrong? No, it was a cumulative attack on our election, and I truly believe that. And this is just for integrity. This is not about Mr. Lehman. This is just to make sure that we have a hand recount of the original ballot after it goes through the machines. Because do we know that those machines are foolproof? No, we do not. No, we're not saying go back to the old machines. We don't want those either. But these machines were definitely hackable. You may not have the information that we've been looking over for the past 2 years, but we are well versed and schooled in what those tabulators are capable of, and that is many times flipping votes. And we just want to make sure that we have the exact vote that Lycoming County intended to happen. Thank you.
Friend Bill,
Good morning.
can you state your name out loud, please? If you don't mind, could you just pull your mask down so people could understand you in clarity? Thank you.
Good morning, people of Lycoming County. My name is Bill Fenderson, resident of Lycoming County, poll worker for 12 years. These machines, now again, as we take notes on certain things, I filled it for my wife numerous times, but now I'm a full-fledged voter in our precinct. The problem I have with this whole thing is we have a county budget going on today. We're spending all this time and energy on this when we have an election in 58 days. 58 days. We're looking at this, we're getting people contradicting on different things. It makes it irrelevant to how we do things anymore. And I fully understand. I'm not going back and forth against different organizations or wherever. The problem is, we have all this energy. Why don't we get something done in the county other than pushing this back to 2020, where the commissioners and the process is going on can't even get any volunteers to fill their open positions? We have a tendency, serious ability to get a building for the county coroner. We're taking everything away from their ability to get this taken care of. They've been trying to get this done forever. For Slayman on his behalf, I'd love to know what it's costing the county and the taxpayers of Lycoming County for all these meetings and all this energy has been performed. And there's a lot of no one understands more than the people up here, the people over there at that desk, what it's going to cost the people of Lycoming County if we decide to damage $2 million, give or take a couple $100 in there, with all the other stuff we have put together. I don't want to take a lot of time going over this, but I will say one thing only, if I may, sir. Right now I'm working with different organizations trying to get prescription drugs through Pennsylvania on 2 bills. I wish I had this much energy to get that done. It's been sitting in Harrisburg now for 3 years. Bill 579 on the Senate side, on the House side, it's Bill 321. And all this energy we have here, why don't we all write letters about high prescription drug prices in Pennsylvania? Because Pennsylvania is the leader, the highest prescription drug prices in the nation. But with that being said, again, the commissioners have a lot of stuff on their plate, trying to keep this county running. Forest Lehman has 58 days to get around for an election. We've got new poll workers coming in and have to be trained, but yet we're sitting here with all these meetings and spending taxpayers' money. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it for everyone showing up. I understand we're probably never going to agree to disagree, but always remember, you prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Thank you.
Demetra Moffitt.
What's your name?
Demetra, Moffitt, M-O-F-F. I am a military spouse, and I'm also a veteran myself. Since I was 18, I voted in Mississippi. That's where I was born and raised. I voted in other countries where I was on deployment, and now I voted here in Pennsylvania. I have voted on the touchscreen where you pick, and I voted here in PA where you have the paper ballot, feed it through the machine. I've never, since I have voted and served this country and been a military spouse, heard of any fraud since, the 2000 election with George Bush and Al Gore. Until 2020, when the former president, who is also being investigated for obstruction of justice and espionage, came out and said that, it is fraud. I'm not going to concede. Joe Biden did not win. That is the only time we have came out and heard anything about fraud. And the only fraud that has came out has been on the Republican side from his supporters. If I'm not mistaken, Florida has had several Republicans and several Trump supporters came out there, did the fraud. In Pennsylvania, the GOP candidate for governor, Doug Mastriano, was the leader in 20 fake electors with Trump and Rudy Giuliani to try to overturn the election. So to say the 2020 election, it was almost 2 years ago, needs to be looked at and this needs to change because of what a former president said is ludicrous. It is lunacy. And you know what they say about when something is lunatic? Trying to do the same thing over and over again and trying to get the same result. This is what this is. Colorado, Nevada, all these other states have tried to do the same thing that you guys are trying to do. And the ballots have been hand counted several times at the cost of taxpayers, at the cost of people who supported the former president. And they found out every single time he lost. Every single time. This is not the way to go. I understand you guys feel like that because he was your president, he should have won the second time. He didn't. This is not voter integrity. The election was not stolen. So to change something because you feel like it's wrong is not it. I have voted in another country before, and I've never one time thought my vote did not count. I never felt that way. I fought for this country. My husband is currently fighting for this country, and I never felt like my vote was not heard. To say that now you want paper ballots and hand counted, this is a strenuous thing that is going to be on poll workers. Because now you're going to have them in here counting these ballots by hand for days. It's going to further delay votes being counted. So you're not taking into account the poll workers. You're not taking into account forests. This is going to make people not want to vote. It's going to make them say, I'm not going to stand in line to wait this long. But the 3,000 people that signed it, hey, river floats your boat. But this is not the way to go. This is dividing people instead of bringing people together.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your
also.
service. I would ask that when you're speaking, please direct your comments at the commissioners, the Board of Elections, because we're the ones that are making the decision. Please don't direct them at the audience and try to engage with the audience. Not saying you're trying to, but please direct your comments at us, because we're the ones that have to make the decision, not the audience, us. Thank you. Bill, you're next.
My name's Bill Mealy. What I'm suggesting to the commissioners is kind of a middle ground between what you're seeing between the two sides. I think, first of all, I would hope we would all agree that if something's on the ballot, we want to have an educated electorate. We want them to understand what's involved, all the angles, how much it's going to cost. And the question becomes, are we going to be able to do that in 58 days? And I would submit that, no, that's not really reasonable. That's not feasible. Instead, why not take this approach? Why not use the machines like we withdraw your decision to put it on the ballot, have the election like we normally do. Then, after the election, hand count every single vote and see how close it is to what the machines are telling us. Now, there must be a margin of error. I don't know what it would be. If the margin of error is something acceptable, then you make your decision based on that. In other words, maybe you'll say, hey, the margin of error isn't enough to make us warrant to get rid of the machines and go to the extra cost and everything that's involved. If the margin of error is something that's significant and could actually affect the outcome of an election, or something that calls into question the integrity of our elections, then that's an entirely different question. What you're trying to do now is what they're asking you to do now is disregard the fact that we spent approximately $2 million on machines. Disregard the cost of putting it on the ballot. Disregard how much work it will be if in fact it's passed by an electorate that's really not informed, and how much it's going to cost, where you're going to get the people to count the ballots, how you're going to move the ballots from one location to another. What's the risk of ballots being lost, stolen, or damaged, and transportation between one place or another? And what's this fallacy that people seem to think that hand-counted ballots are more valid? Have you ever counted change and come up with a different figure every time you do it? I mean, hand counting doesn't guarantee you anything. Any system we use is going to have problems with it. It's not going to be 100% accurate. What we need is a system that guarantees and gives some sense of security to the people. And I guess what bothers me about this whole thing is I don't remember seeing anything in the news locally or any of these people complaining about the 2016 election when these same machines were used. When Hillary Clinton lost Pennsylvania by a fairly minimal amount of votes, I don't remember one of these people coming forward and saying, the machines aren't accurate, we need to get rid of the machines. This is all about, as the one gentleman was talking, this is all about a result of the election. And the other thing that worries me, and I'll be done, you know, Supreme Court justice used to talk about what's called a slippery slope. In other words, once you make a change in something, it's easy to make another change. And what concerns me is if we get rid of the machines, if in fact they are valid, are good, then that's the first change we make. Is there another change on the horizon where we're going to try now to limit the people who can vote? I'm not saying that any system is sacrosanct and can't be questioned, certainly. And that's why I suggest, let's count the votes after this election. Let's hand count. Let's incur that cost, which we as taxpayers are going to pay to satisfy less than 5%. That those 3,392 people are less than 5% of the registered voters. So we'll incur that cost for that. And let's see what it says, instead of just going off half blinded without all the information you need. Because again, if the machines aren't good, then so be it. I'll stand up here next time and say, get rid of the machines and hand count it. But right now, you don't know. And as far as being hacked, there's no evidence that any of these machines were hacked in the last election. One piece of evidence came out. Second of all, there's no evidence of any voter fraud. In all the court cases by Trump and his attorneys, not one attorney in one court ever said there was voter fraud. no evidence of voter fraud, no matter what he says and what people choose to believe. The objective evidence is it did not occur to any degree that would affect the election. But the point is, don't just go off with half information. Let's take this off the ballot. Let's not do it. Let's the machines do their job, and then we come in and hand count. And let's see what it shows us. Then we'll have information. Then we'll know whether we should proceed or not, and you'll have a valid leg to stand on one way or the other. Instead of right now, you don't know, and you're going to have an uninformed electorate make a decision which significantly affects all of us. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Don Peters from Cummings Township, Lycoming County. Before I even move forward, I just want to reiterate, you as commissioners, and actually Forrest, we really personally think you've done a great job. So I want to make sure to clear the air. Forrest, all my interactions with you have been nothing but positive and professional, to your credit. So I just want to make sure there's not something hanging in the air here that would be inappropriate. You've done a great job, as far as I'm concerned, even if we disagree at times. I just want to clear up a couple of things, or at least bring point to. In fact, I would agree with Mr. Mealy, who just spoke, that we should have a hand count. And I think that's what Mrs. DeSalvo had put forward at the very beginning. As long as we get that somewhere, I think the issue can be resolved. So I think that's a great point. I also want to address that I've heard now this thing about Donald Trump and this fraud. And I just want to say, as Mr. Mealy pointed out, we didn't see this in the 2016. That's because the government, under the Mueller investigation, was busy investigating the Russian collusion for 2 years at the cost of millions of dollars, and found out there was no collusion whatsoever on Russia. So now when the Republicans stand up and suspect that, now we're considered delirious. And it just got, that doesn't even make sense to me, but this is a typical double standard is what I've seen. And then one other thing before I even move forward. It's been said here a number of times, the safeguard in the system is we have paper ballots, which we do. Mrs. DeSalvo or Mr. Stroman, how many of those paper ballots have we been able to look at? Zero. Zero. None. You're saying this is a safeguard. It's not a safeguard because they fight us at every turn. And I got to say, it seems like, I don't want to speak too far out of turn, but the law firm that represents the county seems to be fighting us at every turn, even on cases that we have won on behalf of the county. They're fighting us. We're paying them in salaries. And they're going against us every turn. Just a couple more things. I've spent my career, as you gentlemen know, in the Pennsylvania State Police. I was the troop commander down here. I want to just be clear. I'm not a computer expert, but I had them working under my command. I will tell you that every thumb drive, every scanner, every computer, and every system is subject to hacking. It is. You can say what you want. If there's a computer expert in here that wants to come up and speak against that, I would certainly welcome that. But I want to tell you, I know for a fact everything can be hacked. Everything is hackable, right down to the human body, by the way. PA Department of State, as was mentioned early on, is unelected bureaucrats that are working at the behest of the governor. My question is, why would you be concerned if we hand count our ballots in any county? We should be able to look at them, period, and review what's taken place in our elections. And frankly, I don't have anything else to say. This is, I do have one more thing to say. You commissioners have a difficult job. We recognize that. This 10% of the electorate that was signed on, and these are Republicans and Democrats. It was open. This is not a Democratic or Republican issue. I don't care what happened in 2020 at this point. This is not a Democratic or Republican issue. This is a voter integrity issue and a transparency issue that we owe to the voters of this county to make sure that they are wanting to come out and vote. And they want to know a system is in place that has safeguards. Computers and computer systems are not safeguards, period. And a small percentage, if that was in fact done by hand, I'm still not sure about that, but if if Forrest said it was, or if you said it was, then I'm sure that it was. But even at that, that is not adequate. We need to reassure our voters that this is the system that works. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hi, my name's Michael House. I live in Loyalsock. I participated in both the canvassing efforts. The initial one we did, it was spoken to that it's a very low percentage of fraud we found. We didn't have enough volunteers to go out and knock every door and make sure everybody was home. We hit a very, very small percentage. And with the percentage we hit, we found a horrifying number of indiscrepancies, we'll call them. And based off of what we provided, we showed that there was fraud in our county, in our backyard. So for people to say there's not, there really is. I can attest to it. I saw it. I testified in front of you gentlemen before. It's out there. It's not, some of it's not intentional, it's accidental. The voter rolls need cleaned up. I won't harp on that issue too much because this really isn't the topic, but I wanted to hit it real quick since a lot of other people have. I just say for you commissioners, we have your backs totally. You're representing our community. We recognize that. We respect that. You can disagree with us. You can agree with us. We're having an honest dialogue. I greatly appreciate that. That means a lot to me that you're willing to take the time, whatever your beliefs are, to listen and understand what we're bringing to you guys. So, once again, thank you. We put a lot of effort into knocking doors. I work full-time. I'm on leave right now just to come to this. Last time I wasn't here because I thought it was handled. But this is important enough today and questionable enough that I think I need to be out here to say, we're not asking to put on the ballot. We're not asking to remove them. We're asking for choice. We're asking for our community to have a choice in how the election's done. We're not mandating what we believe. I have beliefs, and I have strong beliefs. But what we're asking for is not mandating that. We're giving people a choice to decide themselves as electors, which is what we should be able to do. The fact that we have the Department of State coming in and trying to intimidate us, that right there is voter intimidation on its face. What's the best way to shut somebody up? Scare them. Bring up bigger names. More intimidation. I guarantee you there's people in this room right now that have some level of intimidation by them. I recognize it for what it is. Throwing out bigger names. What next? Department of Justice coming after us because we as Lycoming County dare to actually believe we can actually affect our own elections? It's ridiculous. It's insulting that they think they can just come in, stomp their foot, and we're going to cower. And that's why I respect you guys so much, because you're not cowering.
Here, here.
And as far as uninformed voters, that really hit me hard. Honestly, I think I know more than a lot of people do. But does that mean I think you're not, somebody in this crowd's not smart enough to vote, to make a decision themselves? That's ridiculous. And for anybody to even think that, it saddens me and upsets me at the same time. So, everybody deserves a voice regardless of their education. I'm not a doctor. I have a 2-year degree. But it doesn't make my vote less valuable than somebody else. What next? Oh, you got too much pigment in your skin or you don't have enough. Your vote doesn't count. Is that what we're going to go back to because we're not informed enough? It's sad. And about the cost of the voter machines, yeah, we put out a lot of money. So what do? We keep feeding this monster because throwing more money at it's going to fix it? We may have made a bad call. We may have made a good call. I personally like the idea of doing both hand counts and the tabulators, but the official count is the hand count. Discrepancy between the two, there should be none. Right. Zero. Right. And that's it. And I just want to thank you guys again for listening to us and all the canvassers who've put time and effort into this and everybody else for putting their opinions into this. I've learned a few things out there that are going on that I wish I was more active in, but unfortunately this is the most pressing thing I've chosen to chase down. I don't have a lot of time to chase down everything. So thank you guys for having a backbone. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Anne-Marie Furman. So I may have missed something, gentlemen. At the beginning, it was stated that the attorney received a call from the Department of State with a follow-up letter. I don't remember the context of what that phone call was or that letter. Can you help me understand what they were saying? Because I don't recall that being spoke to us, told to us.
The letter was received since the last meeting, so there would not have been a prior public discussion of that letter. If the board wishes to read the letter, they're more than welcome to do so.
Yeah, if you could read the letter. And please, let them read it, don't react to it.
This letter is dated September 9th, 2022. It's directed to Forrest Lehman, Ray, referenda request for electronic voting systems. Dear Director Lehman, the Pennsylvania Department of State has learned the Lycoming County Board of Elections has been approached numerous times by county residents demanding a referendum be placed on the ballot for the November 8th, 2022 general election pursuant to 25 PS Section 31.4E. That provision allows electors of a county or municipality to place a referendum on the ballot that, if approved, would, quote, direct the discontinuance of the use of an electronic voting system at all elections held in such county or municipality.
Mike, can you speak up just a little louder?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Certain electors in pockets of the Commonwealth have voiced support for the removal of electronic voting systems. Some have advanced 25 PS Section 3031.4 as a vehicle for doing so. Some of these advocates evidence strong emotions, and several boards of elections have found public meetings more challenging due to the commitment of these groups and the time such advocacy requires of the boards. The Lycoming County Board of Commissioners is among these boards, and I understand the challenges you face. Despite the strong emotions involved, the law clearly prohibits referendum regarding whether to use electronic voting system. In Kuznick versus Westmoreland County Board of Commissioners, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court held that conditioning use of electronic voting systems on the result of a referendum was barred by the Federal Help America Vote Act, HAVA, which requires adoption of electronic voting systems. 902 A second 476, page 480, PA 2006. Specifically, the court determined that holding a referendum, quote, would directly impede the goals of the HAVA legislation, including accessibility for disabled voters, end quote. Same citation at pages 507 through 08. Accordingly, the court held that HAVA preempted the referendum requirements of Article 9A of the Election Code. The court also concluded that having a bifurcated system of voting with a HAVA compliant system for federal elections and a separate mechanical lever system for municipal elections violated the utilitarian voting requirements of Pennsylvania law and undermined the improved voter access requirements found in HAVA. In essence, counties are required to use the same system for general and municipal elections, and the referendum provisions have been preempted. I believe this analysis applies in any referendum relevant on the authority found in 25 PS 3031.4. Because the referendum provisions of 25 PS Section 3031.4 has been preempted, any referendum conducted under this provision would serve no legal purpose and would therefore be non-binding and advisory. The Commonwealth Court has held that boards of election lack the legal authority to place non-binding referendum questions on the ballot. That's the Hempfield School District versus Election Board of Lancaster County, and also the Board of Elections of Schuylkill County versus Blythe Township decisions. Thus, Kuznick and Hempfield.
Came up with big wins in the opening weekend, but who had the most impressive to start their season yesterday, Kyle?
Well, the team that was supposed to win any. The team that's 0-17. The Bears are the worst team.
I was hoping I could hear who had the best. You cut it off just a little soon, sir.
The Bears.
Yeah, the Bears are. Thus, Kuznick and Hempfield cases make clear that a Board of Elections, when considering the legal sufficiency of referendum to be placed on the ballot pursuant to 25 PS 2936, should reject any petition requesting placement of a referendum where that petition relies on the statutory authority for referendum found at 25 PS 3031.4. The same logic applies to referendum proposed under the older statutory provision related to mechanical voting machines found at 25 PS section 3003. These issues are legally complicated, and I am certain you will review them with your solicitor and legal staff. But inasmuch as ballots may be printed very soon, I'm requesting that you contact me no later than close of business on Tuesday, September 13th, 2022, concerning your plans for any request for electronic voting system referendum that may be placed before the Lycoming County Board of Elections. Meanwhile, I will be conferring with our Office of Chief Counsel to determine the Department of State's legal options if the board proceeds with this ballot question. Respectfully, Jonathan Marks, Deputy Secretary of Elections and Notaries. That's the full content of the letter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, from the understanding with what Mrs. DeSalvo has presented at the beginning of this meeting, in fact, what they're saying is not. I'm going to say the law. I'm just a regular person, right? So she has already demonstrated that we are, you gentlemen, what you have done is allowable by the law. So to me, I see that as a threat to the county commissioners. So I ask that you heed that. So again, last week what you gentlemen did, I truly appreciate what you've done, the courage that it took for you to make the motion and to pass the motion. Took a lot of courage, and the Lycoming County residents do truly appreciate the work that you're doing for us as elected officials. That letter was generated, as Mr. Peters had spoke, right from non-elected bureaucrats. I'm not quite sure where they are able to come in and tell the commissioners of our county how to run their county. You are doing the will of the people of Lycoming County. So you have a referendum that was motioned and second, right, through the correct process. And here we are, right? So I'm kind of confused at why we are here today. You put that, you followed the right legal process. Now we're being questioned by non-elected bureaucrats. You're being questioned by non-elected bureaucrats, threatened by them. And I truly don't understand that process. So no one here, as I had mentioned before, no one here can say that my vote or any of your votes were counted as casted, right? Because there is not full transparency that was given. We do not have the cast vote records. We have been shut down. We've asked for them, and we don't have them. So nobody here can say that what ended up in Harrisburg is what you casted at your precinct. Let the county residents, Lycoming County residents, you passed it, right? You passed that referendum. Let us decide in November whether we want to continue with these voting systems. Let us decide. You had the courage to put it on there, to make the process, follow the process legally, to get it on the ballot. That's all we're asking. Whether you're for it or not for it, right, you have a voice. By filling that blank in on your ballot, you have a voice. That's all we're asking, giving us residents of Lycoming County the decision whether we want to continue or not. They did their part. Now it's our part as residents to go out and vote.
Thank you.
My name is Verna Caruso. I am a poll worker for many years and currently minority inspector in Williamsport Ward 1. Just a couple of points. First, accusations are not facts. People have presented evidence that they found on the internet, and I'm sure everyone knows that if you look in the internet, you can find anything you want. By discontinuing the use of the scanners, we would be going backwards. And I don't think any of us want to go back to 1955, 1945. I remember when I was a little girl, and that was a long time ago, going with my grandparents to vote using those little machines with the levers on. So those were in use for a long time. I realize right now that it's fashionable to disagree with experts, whether it's disagreeing with Dr. Fauci about COVID or whether it's disagreeing with teachers on what to present to their classes. It's, you know, the thing right now to disagree with people who know more than anyone else about what their job is. Next, if anyone, just anyone, can have access to the ballots and the machines that are used in elections, how will we ever be able to trust the validity of these ballots again? Just anyone should not be able to handle ballots that are cast by the voters of this county. Where is the evidence that the scanners have been tampered with? I have not heard anyone say that they have evidence that the scanners were actually tampered with. As far as I know, such evidence does not exist. And also, finally, an official canvass of a small percentage of voters is not evidence of fraud. Where did the voters list come from that were used in this canvass? As far as I know, this has never been made clear as to how big the universe was of people that were actually initially contacted, and then those 30-some-odd people actually signed affidavits. How big was the initial sampling? As a former person who worked with polls, I'm very interested in finding that out. And in conclusion, I'll just end where I started. Accusations are not fact. Thank you.
Ron Snell, Plunkett's Creek. First of all, I'd like to apologize to the commissioners and the audience for my phone's outburst. What I was trying to do when it went off was I was trying to look up the grant that the county received for use on election integrity. If I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere around $200,000, the grant money. I've heard a lot of partisan talk up here. I'm not going to talk partisan talk. I'm going to talk bipartisan talk. Forrest Lehman, I've always had great interactions with Forrest Lehman, and he's always been professional. But what I do want to say is, I don't care what party anybody's from, they should want election integrity. And if it takes two ways to ensure that, at the very least, if the commissioners decide to change their decision and keep the machines, at the very least, also hand count the ballots and cross-reference. I've heard it from two different people that that's a good way of ensuring integrity, election integrity. And like I said, I don't care what party you're from. Everybody should want to be assured that this county has election integrity. Thank you.
Hello, Craig Dudek, Moreland Township.
Greg Dudek. My Democratic friends, they love to throw the word around democracy. They use it quite a bit. Isn't this democracy? Put it on the ballot, let the people decide. That's democracy. And I think far too many people are making this about Trump, and it's really not about Trump. And that's basically all I have to say. It's let democracy work, put it on the ballot. And I do think Forrest does a great job. He's always been very good to me every time I've gone in the office. So this is nothing personal. And one more final thing. If we do go to hand count, people in this county are going to have to step up and volunteer and help out. All right? Thank you.
Kim Watney of Jersey Shore.
Kim, what's your last name?
Watney. Hello, and commissioners. I just am here today to, thank you for getting this on and to show my support that I believe, that some things that are really the best things, they take more effort, like making a home-cooked meal as a mom. I know I could just go grab something pre-processed, fast food, but when I take the time to grow the food or cook the food, a homemade meal for my family, that's the best thing. And technology, we all know, it's a double-edged sword. It can save us time. It's revolutionized things for us, right? But it can be hacked. So when technology messes up, when these machines mess up, these tabulators mess up, it can cause a major problem, right? Like it can be a big mess up. It's like a forest fire, and so to me, it's worth the extra effort to count those ballots. That is the tangible proof. Handwritten ballots counted, and they can be double counted, and I really think that, we need to uphold the integrities of our elections, that we want it to be fair and honest for everybody. And, I think the next thing coming down the line is that voter ID. Nobody has ever asked for my voter ID when I've gone to vote. And, if that's because it's racist or again, if it takes too much time, or poor people can't afford an ID, like as a resident of Pennsylvania, let's put that on the list of things that welfare, if you qualify for welfare, well, we can afford to pay the extra fee to get you an ID. And everybody should be able to vote and to prove who they are, and that these votes can be counted and verified. They do it in France, and sometimes the best roads are the long roads.
Anyone else? Got one more? Two more? Three more? Four more?
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning. It's still a good morning, but it may not be a good morning tomorrow morning. This is very serious.
Your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, I get rambling. My name is Ron Arner. I consider myself to be an American. I'm very concerned about the future of our country, as I'm sure we all are. Not only our country, but the foundation of our country are Judeo-Christian, code of morality, and recognition that our government's purpose is what? To ensure that our God-given rights are secured, period. We the people are supposedly in charge. We elect those who represent us. The question right now is, do we truly elect those who represent us? anyone who has done, I would say, a quarter of the research that I've done over the years, we do not elect. The voting machines select. It's a fact. Anybody who says there is no fraud, they have no idea what they're talking about. They're listening to the press. I would implore the press, seek the truth. You will find it, but you have to look. This day and age, truth, you really have to search for it. Common sense, anybody with an ounce of common sense, analyzing everything that has happened, there's no question that our elections are fraudulent. All kinds of documentation is developed, but the media has chosen to, there's no conspiracy. I mean, it's all conspiracy. It's not conspiracy. I'm telling you, we'll be very lucky if we have an election this fall. Harrisburg, Washington, they are in so deep. They are in so deep. They must continue their, keep things quiet. You can't speak up. Don't speak up. We're told. You're an extremist if you do. No, I'm an American. I am an American. If I don't speak up, it's over. And I'm telling you, you will understand very sure what's going to happen. The party in charge cannot lose. They cannot become a minority. It's a fact. They're treasonous acts. How many people have died because of the COVID fiasco? What they have done. That's going to go before the Nuremberg code or whatever they call it. But it's serious. I know, I'm not feeding you anything. Washington is corrupt. The political system is corrupt. It's not only the D's, but it's the R's. There's a big international agenda that they're very serious about. Or old Klaus Schwab. I mean, we're back to 1930s Germany. It's one world. It's true. Okay, wait, so. I just want to apply. I've said how desperate those in political command are. They are truly desperate. Anything could happen at any time. They must not prevail. If they prevail, freedom is gone. And once freedom is gone, it's over, folks, for at least a generation. I do not want my grandchildren. I would pretty impossible to ensure that those succeeding me have the same freedom that we enjoy. Haven't enjoyed. It's being limited now. I'm probably on a list. All these people are probably on a list. And they are going to come down. It's no joke, folks. I know. I'm not telling you. I know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Rick Hauser, Wellsock Township. Folks, obviously we've heard a lot of things from different people about voter integrity, etc. And it's pretty clear that we've got a hard divide on both sides of this. But if anybody thinks that the Democrats don't complain about voter fraud, then, well, they haven't been alive the last 25 years. And as far as investigations and such going on with no founding information and accusations don't equal, what was it, convictions or what have you, tell that to Donald Trump. And I'm just saying that because we have a very polarized electorate right now. And if anybody can look at the condition of this country today and say that we don't have institutional rot from the top right on down, it's the rotten fish, and it rots from the head down. That's what we got. And when you have people dictating out of Harrisburg what we can do here, we elected you. They didn't. you have to stay solid. The referendum needs to go forward because it is an act of the integrity of this country and the people that elect you and the representative concept of this government as it was laid down to perform on that aspect, and you should not relent. No amount of threats, coercion, holding back funds, or anything else, threats real or implied, should be entertained. Everything that's done now needs to be done for the preservation of our nation. We didn't seek the counsel and the permission of King George to start this. And we should not seek the counsel of King Wolf to do our elections the way we want. So I want to tell everybody here, no matter what side you're on, Democrats or Republicans, we both have our beliefs, and God bless all of you. I want to have a day when we're all Americans again. All of us. Where we can shake hands and come across the divide and truly love each other on an equal basis as fellow citizens of the greatest republic in the world. But we have to save it. And folks, understand this. No attempt to additional transparency in our elections should be a threat to anyone. That should be a base point for all of us. And, the election was found fine all the way through. None of this was ever fully adjudicated in any court in this country. It was thrown out for standing. It was thrown out for every other kind of spurious reason. So when somebody says, well, 60 cases failed for Trump, that's not true. None of them have yet to be heard in any court in this land. Not a single one. People have to understand what's going on. And remember this, if your side prevails, it's not because you destroyed the other one. It's because they had superior ideas. That's the way it should be. We need to get back to that. We can't have a mutually assured destruction of half of the country and expect to survive. We can't. We've got to go on, and we have to get things back. But the integrity of your offices is a great place to start. It threatens no one. And it brings back some transparency and some belief in our election systems, which are in tremendous assault from a great suspicion of great corruption in the 2020 election. And if that were not so, you wouldn't see the groundswell of things, regardless of Trump, that are going nationwide, because people have less faith in their elective process today because of the shenanigans and fraud that have gone on. We need one day to vote. Show up and vote. Why is that a problem? It's a problem for the other side, or whomever it is that doesn't like that, because it doesn't allow for fraud. Now we vote 3, 4, 5, 6 months in a row, and then we count the votes another week or 3 weeks or whatever it takes to turn it. After the election is over, there's no propriety in that. When people vote, they want to know it counts. 150 years ago, we knew who the president was in 48 hours. We can't do that today. In a local ombudsman race in the boroughs of Manhattan, we have to wait 3 or 4 weeks because we have mail-in ballots. We've got this, we've got that. We've got machines. This is a problem, that's a problem. We didn't have ballots here, there. It's not a fault. It is a feature of a program to destroy our elections. That's what it is. It's a plan. Don't fall prey to it, and don't please fall prey to the diktats of King Wolf to take things away from the duly elected members here by your represented by the people that are putting you in, your constituents. Hold strong. Nothing that can happen to you will not be shared by us. And the optics of these people sending up a goon squad and frog marketing anybody out of here based on this would be the greatest optics in the world. Comes a time when there's a revolution that can be quiet. But the revolution to reclaim your power and keep the power you have is right now. And I implore you to do that and stand strong. And on September 29th at the Genetti, 6:30 p.m. will be an airing of 2,000 Mules, and I would suggest anybody that can make it get there. I thank you very much, gentlemen.
Tom Adams, Williamsport. It's a little striking to me, we have a Department of State that wants to go, I think they're straining a gnat and swallowing a camel. They're so concerned about this being on our ballot, this question, but they could care less about the violence in Philadelphia, that people are being killed, murdered on the streets because they had no district attorney who wants to carry out the law, and we have no attorney general in the state that wants to carry out the law. He wants to allow more criminals free, and the rampant nonsense of getting kids transgender and that stuff. We're going to listen to these people. They're ungodly and they're immoral, and that's not what this country is founded on. This is evil and it's wicked. I want to point out some things. I see a lot of our Democrat friends left after they make their comments, and I kind of saddened about that, because I think one thing about the canvassing, there were only about 150 residences that were approached. That's 33% of those residences showed problems. And that was done in a cold time of year, and we didn't have a whole lot of people being able to do that. And it's difficult walking up to homes and getting people to answer and talk. So it's only 150 contacts, face-to-face contacts, and out of that 33%. So to say it's only less than 1% is disingenuous and not true. Also, you don't understand petitions. This petition drive was about a 3-month effort. We got over 3,000 signatures. Is very telling, because if we had a full year and we're able to get these petitions out en masse, but the petitions have to be handled by the petitioner. The person has to be present. It's not just just set out the paper and people can sign it. That's not how they work. That's why you only have 3,400 signatures, round number, and not 50,000 signatures. So you have to remember these things. You're playing with numbers and you're not understanding the facts, how these things are carried out. Also, we're not accusing poll workers in Williamsport of any ill work. It's these machines can be hacked outside the polls. These machines can be hacked in transit, by a satellite, by any electronic signal that's sent within or without the polls. And it doesn't have to be the poll workers, and we're not accusing any poll worker of that. I've been there, a poll watcher. I see these people, they're honest, and they're our neighbors, and they're friends, and that's what we want. Yes. I think it's ludicrous to put your faith in a machine that can be hacked, that has proven to be hacked. In Tennessee, 7 out of 15 machines in a certain county were shown to be flipping votes, and these were these tabulators. And this is something, you can't ignore these things. Act 77, once again, the State Department ignored. That was an unconstitutional passing, push on us, and they ignored to stop it because it played in their interest. That's what's wrong with this nonsense, because you're not standing up for rule of law. You're pick and choose what you want to go after, and this is the problem. This is the divide. We want honesty, integrity, like our founders founded on this country, and it is founded on Judeo-biblical principles. And if it wasn't for the Bible and Christianity, we wouldn't have this what we have today. And they're trying to stamp it out as hard as they can, because darkness brings death, and that's where we're headed if we don't keep this going. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Holly Patton Shaw, and I have been a poll worker here in Williamsport now this will be my 4th election coming up. And, I find it really interesting, just occurred to me here, if just listening to the tone of everyone, what I do hear is everybody wants honesty and integrity. I hear that from all of us. And if you get rid of the particulars, we all sound the same, really. The particulars of whatever the divide is, we do all sound kind of exactly the same. I was completely impressed by the way the elections are run here. You know, the paper ballots go out, people sit independently, they fill it out. Prior to doing that, they're allowed to go research outside of the election area on any, they can take the ballot home or not take the ballot home, but they can come back later. Then the ballots go into like a scanner, and it's just like a big box. It's clear. It's got a clear back end. You see all the paper ballots go in there, stacking on top of one another, and then that remains locked. And then I'm a minority helper, and we zoom it downtown, and people come out like a SWAT team, grab all the votes and usher them in, and we bring in the rest of the particulars and drop that off. It's just so secure. And I understand the concern with the accuracy of automation. I'm the first one to say automation drives me wild. But rather than throw the baby out with the bathwater, it seems like we're going to a very big extreme. I mean, I have a suggestion is why don't we randomly pick out 5 districts with these machines, as similar to the canvassing you folks did to determine how the elections went around here, and then hand count those ballots out of those randomly picked 5 machines out of the county, and then see what the discrepancy is or is not. And why so wouldn't that reveal something similar to what the canvassing now has done on these 48 households here in this county? Just a suggestion, but I do hope we all can feel safe on election day and go out and exercise our vote and work together for a better Williamsport. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carol Pryor. I'm from Mifflin Township, and thank you, commissioners, again for hearing us. And my husband and I were part of the people collecting doing the petitions, and the 3,392 would have been probably well over 5,000 if he would have had more time. But we thought we were under a deadline, and we were rushing to get things done. And today, still people are saying, "Can I sign your petition?" So there would have been a whole lot more. I have the HAVA Act here, part of it, and the Section 301 Voting System Standards. Karen, Mrs. DeSalvo has touched on this. And but when you go to Part B, manual audit capacity, Part 1 says the voting system shall produce a permanent paper record with a manual audit capacity for such systems. These are the rules for Pennsylvania. Part 3 says the paper record produced under subparagraph A shall be available as an official record for any recount conducted with respect to any election in which the system is used. If it is available, where is it? Why haven't we been able to get them? I mean, I can understand, it says here that they are to be available for us to use. I mean, I think that's what available means. Maybe it's available for only voter services people to use. I'm not sure what that means. But I don't understand if we can, people have talked about having a recount of this year's election. Why can't we have an election one of previous elections? I don't see what the difference would be. Unless, the only thing I could think of that it would be that there's a possibility that it would set a precedent, and that would start the ball rolling for other counties. And rather than do that, it's better to stop it here and say, no, you can't have the ballots that are available to us. Thank you.
afternoon, well, good morning, Commissioners. That was my better half.
Smart one.
Bob Pryor, Mifflin Township. You know, one of the duties of the Department of State is to guarantee that the voting process is accurate and has integrity in the whole process. We wouldn't be here today if it wouldn't be for the State Department. We requested to see the paper ballots. We were denied by Mr. Lehman. Why? Because the State Department told him not to let us see those ballots. So they started this whole darn thing. And now they're threatening us. They're threatening you. Or at least intimidating, whatever you want to call it. I'll tell you right now, I'm one that's not going to back down.
Right.
And I think truly you guys have backbone.
Yeah.
We need more backbone. That's the problem we have today. They don't have enough backbone. So we got to make sure everybody we elect does have that quality. But anyway, just one more thing here. When you look at our state Supreme Court, that court's political. They changed the rules during the game.
Yeah, they did.
They said it was okay to not check those signatures. They said it was okay to take ballots in 3 days after Election Day. They broke the law. We are following the law in this process. And there's a saying, a quote here I just want to say, those who have nothing to hide, hide nothing.
Anybody else?
Can I make one more comment, or am I done?
You're done.
Okay.
Sorry, Craig.
That's fine.
Sir? I like the shirt. I like the shirt.
Thank you.
I like your vacation.
When you speak here at the podium,
Could you state your
talk
name?
into the mic.
Could you state your name, sir?
Bernard Breadbenner Jr.
Bernard
Breadbenner, no A in the bread. When you speak here at the podium, don't stand back. You can't hear you in the back. This does not bite. It does not bite. Anyway, in 2020, I lost my confidence in election integrity. In 2020, we saw Trump rallies, 10 to 60,000 people attending Trump rallies. Pedophile Joe Biden, 0 to 50, and probably 20 of those was the media. 7 of our 9 Supreme Court justices turned a blind eye to election fraud. 7 of our 9 Supreme Court justices turned a blind eye to election fraud. They didn't see anything. What about the other 2? Neil Gorsuch and Clarence Thomas. They saw it. You saw it. And you saw it. I saw it. I lost my election integrity. We saw video of ballots being photocopied. They're being photocopied. Hundreds and hundreds of them. Nothing was done. Nothing was done for election integrity. The election fraud went on and on. It showed they cleared Republicans out of the areas.
after the polls closed. They brought suitcases out from under tables that had a skirt around them. And they counted these ballots. And ballots came in 3 days after, and they were counted. Now, a number of years ago, I was driving tractor trailer. I did 48 states in Canada. I didn't get home for an election. I applied for an absentee ballot. Never got it. Never. Election integrity? I don't think so. Where are we going? We have federal elections, Supreme Court justices that can't see election fraud. It'll trickle down to our state and our county and our local. We can't afford this. We cannot afford to lose our election integrity. I feel, does my vote count? I don't know. Nobody has told me, oh yeah, Bernie, your vote counts. I don't know about that. I'm not sure. There's people in this county that have voted twice in person. There's people that voted by mail 2, 3, 4 times. Have we cleared our voter rolls in the county? Nope. I don't think so. The people doing that kind of stuff, it shows our voter rolls are not clear. They're not clean. So we need, I don't trust these electronic ballot machines, the scanners. They can be manipulated. They can manipulate them, like they said, through satellite. Or when they set them up, who's there to watch it? We don't know. They don't send a couple of, about 50 sample ballots through to see whether it comes out right. There's no check, system of check that day of the election. So, I just don't trust the integrity of our elections.
Okay, thank you, Bernie. Thank you.
I'm from the big city of Bastrop, Limestone Township.
Thank you.
Joshua Hewlett. I'm a lifelong resident of Montoursville, Pennsylvania. First off, I want to say to the people I've never heard of before, Mrs. DeSalvo, Rick from the Patriots Committee. There are young people like me that do very much value the effort of all the people in this room, even though it doesn't always appear like it. So I want to thank you people for putting forth the effort. This is something that's very passionate to me. Newly married person, no kids yet, to the commissioners. I fear for the children I don't have yet, that they won't be able to take part in the constitutional republic that I grew up in.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and I agree with what other people have said. This isn't a partisan issue of any standpoint. This is just, you want to know when you cast a vote based on your morals, beliefs, myself, Christian values, you want to know that vote's being counted. So I just want to say today, I have God-given rights, as we all do. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights are meant to uphold and protect those. I just mainly wanted to ask you to please take strength from the Lord. Know that there's other people in this room that are going to pray for you, which is why I'm a little emotional now. And know that we very much appreciate the support and the strength and the courage you two are showing. We know it's long hours. We know it's, not always a gentle discourse, and there's harsh words from both sides, but I just want to ask that you two to please stand up for us. Know we'll be praying for you, and also know that God will protect you. So thank you very much.
Dermot, what's your name, Rick? I'm Bonnie Noviello, and I live in South Williamsport. I can't hear you. I'm Bonnie Noviello, and I live in South Williamsport, and I have a few things to say. So, so many speakers before me have had very good points, and so many of them have been very elegant speakers. I'm sorry, I am not, but I will get some points across.
We love you, Bonnie.
Okay, thank you. And I am nervous. I don't like speaking in front of people, believe it or not.
Doing great.
So, I also have voted in 3 different states. I have been voting since the time I've been old enough to vote. I also had a son that went to Iraq and served, and I almost lost him. I am very grateful for all of our rights that we have, all of our freedoms that we have. Listening to the different speakers, 121,000? 121,000? Does anyone think about that number? 121,000 more votes than there are voters in PA? If that doesn't speak volumes all in itself, I don't know what does. That one fact alone. 10,000 aliens were voting. This Judith Christo, she registered to vote, but she was dead. We got some cleaning up to do. We got a lot of things to do. As I brought out before when I talked before. Election in 58 days. That's right. And aren't we all excited? Yes. Yes. Most of all the people that signed the petition can't be here because they have jobs. The amount of money that it costs for these meetings, it's irrelevant because this is your job. This is what these people have voted you here for, to protect our rights. Our rights, not privileges. Our voting is not a privilege, it's a right. So, and I know you have taken it very seriously, as so have all these people. And like when they said they went out and canvassed, it was in the dead of winter. How many other people do things like that? They're doing it for their children, their grandchildren, for ourselves, for everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican, Democrat, Constitutional, or anything else. We're all in this together. Okay. I don't want to talk about my age, but voting ballots. When people used to go and vote, they voted, and by 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, the polls were closed. They counted the ballots in that precinct. They put it on a piece of paper and stuck it on the window. You could go and see who won in your area, whatever you voted for. Then they were tabulated, put all together, and they knew by midnight that night who was elected. That was all done on paper, that was all hand counted. Were there mistakes? Maybe. Was there different things like someone dead registering? Maybe. But, you know, we are here today, we are at this present moment in time. And a lot of people put forth a lot of effort to get to this point. And I agree with the state trying to put pressure on the Lycoming County Commissioners. Nah. Okay. Cost of the voting machines has been brought up many times. A lot of money. But if we find something that is wrong, do we keep doing it? Mr. Mayor Peter, were you ever taught to do something was wrong once you found out it was wrong? Scott? You? Tony? None of us were. We find out something's wrong and we change it. Even when we make the mistake, we stand up and say, I made a mistake, I'm going to do it different. I'm going to do it right the next time. So you have the chance to do it right. And as far as the letter...
One more minute.
Okay, I only have a couple more things. As far as the letter that was read, that was dated on September 9th, and they only had 4 days to reply. The county commissioners are responsible for the integrity of the voting in Lycoming County. That's their job. That is their job. Okay, so that's number 6. My father, Leo Williams, instilled in me my patriotism, knowledge of our Constitution, our rights, and to stand up for what I believe and what I know is right. It is our right and duty to preserve our constitutional republic for all of us, our children, and our grandchildren. And we, the people of Lycoming County, are a constitutional republic as our forefathers established when this was put. And we want this put on the ballot for us, the voters, to make the decision at the voting, our constitutional right for every one of us, no matter what party they stand for. And I'm pleading with you that we do what was right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to wind up the public comment at this time, and if the commissioners like to make any statements.
Yeah, I think public deserves to hear from us. Absolutely. So, it's very emotional. It's very difficult because I listen to both sides here today. I've listened to both sides for the past couple of years, and you both make great arguments. But unfortunately, I'm the one of the three that has to decide, you know, how this moves forward. And I've been always honest with this group and any group that comes before us of my feelings, personal feelings, and that's the way I should be. I should not be influenced. I can be influenced, but I should make the decision based on my personal belief. One, that's what you elected me for, and to represent the majority of you. Sometimes they clash. There's no question. But I will say, election integrity was brought up. Voter confidence was brought up here. That's the main message. It is the main message. And it's undeniable. It is absolutely undeniable that our Department of State and our governor violated that confidence. And it was mentioned here today. Certainly, they allowed ballots after the election day, after 8 o'clock. They did that. There's no denying that. Secondly, they allowed ballots to be cast where it was said by our statute, state statute, that the signatures, they don't necessarily have to match. That's not the law. They didn't follow the law. So there's the mistrust. There's that confidence that we no longer had. And so, 3,500 people, it's a lot of people, 5%, 10%, it doesn't matter. And I know you could have had more, okay? It's a lot of people just to disregard. I think that's very important. I want to get, Rick. I became a member of the Patriots. Why? Because I believed in what you were trying to achieve. One, what you and Kathy put forth was something very important to me, because I believe that we are going down the wrong path. This nation is going down the wrong path, morally, and the way we perceive how government should work. The way you articulate your position is incredible. It's very influential. It's very passionate, and I'm happy to be part of that. There are a lot of people in our community, and I'm speaking about Lycoming County, that we feel that there's something wrong. And what is that? Well, we got to get to the bottom of that. And with that being said, we are still a nation of laws. And I voted for this referendum, and I wanted to make sure that what I voted for was correct, and that I told you I don't want to go to jail for any of you, okay? But I will try my best to help fight and uphold what your values are. We had the Department of State contact us, and Rick, when you said, did we ask for King George permission? That's a pretty powerful statement, but I hope we don't come to a revolution because of it. I hope that we step by the laws that were created and then place elected officials in there to change them so that my grandchildren don't see a revolution. Are we prepared for one? I would say closer now than ever. But we still have to have faith in our system. And I have to abide by the law. And when the Department of State contacted him, immediately all three commissioners said, well, why should we listen to them? Let's get some other opinions. And we did. And we went to an attorney out of town who felt that if we continued with the referendum, that we would not win in court. And this is from the Republican side, that we would be wasting our money, taxpayers' money. And as a commissioner, I'm here to watch over your money. Okay, I don't want to spend it in something like this if we don't think we can win. And we were told, you wouldn't win this in court. Now, we were told a number of other things as well, but I just want you to understand that. So I said at the last meeting, compromise. I've always respected Bill Milley. He worked for the county for a very long time and served our county well. And he mentioned about a compromise. Count every ballot and certify those ballots. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because I believe that there is a process, machines. I've always told you this. I have full confidence in the way Lycoming County runs an election. Full confidence. I believe that the tabulators are correct. I believe that the voting machines system that we have in place are correct. But that's not up to me. It should be up to the people. And by having a hand count, whether it's 5 precincts, 10 precincts, or 100%, I'm not for 100% all the time, okay? And I don't care if it's the 2020 election. I don't care what election we do this in. We have to show the people that what we use here in Lycoming County is beyond question. They're correct. They're correct. And I think we'll do that. As far as Act 77, as far as the Help America Vote Act, that's the federal act. These were all voted in by Republican presidents and Republican legislature. You can't deny that. And that's another confusing thing, for us. If we thought it was partisan, well, is it partisan down there? I don't know. But I do believe, and I'm with you, I'm questioning voter confidence. But we have to do it in a way that is going to uphold the law and do it in a manner that brings the voter confidence back.
So I look at it slightly differently. There's nothing more important to me than my faith. When I hold our prayers before our commissioners meeting, I pray for God to grant us wisdom to help us make tough decisions. And I appreciate the constituents out there that pray for the three of us, because you put us in this position to having faith in us. And I've prayed hard about this decision. God, give us clarity. Bring this community together. It's been divided. This nation has been divided. Bring it together. We're founded on your principles. Please give us clarity. I worked next door for 32 years. I'm used to intimidation. I'm used to threats. And they roll off my back. The DOS are unelected bureaucrats. Now, do I think they just rule with an iron fist? I think they go to their counsel, they go to their legal counsel, and they make the best educated decisions they do before they send out letters to us. We stirred the nest down in Harrisburg to the point where they called our solicitor the next day. And the reason why I voted to put this on the ballot, I knew what the intent of the petitions was. I stated every day the petitions were done incorrectly. But the intent, the purpose of what was behind that was what the people wanted. They wanted to have this on the ballot. And before the petitions were even filed, personally, I felt this is always something that the voters should have decided. The voters decide what kind of equipment they want used in an election. It's we the people. It's not a department in Harrisburg. It's not a department in Washington, D.C. It's we the people. And that's what this country's founded on. So that's why I voted the way I did the other day. I contacted the state legislator. Can we get guidance on this? We got guidance over the weekend. We were on conference calls over the weekend trying to get guidance. With the chief counsel, the Republican committee, look into this. It does say in the HAVA Act, you can use paper ballots. So the first part of their argument, I don't buy. And I would say let's challenge it. But there's another part that he said we will lose. We will definitely lose. And that is the state legislators have to give us the authority to put it on the ballot. That was not given to us. That was not given to us. We would lose that. And they would use that in a court case. And it would cost this county a substantial amount of money to lose. Now, our number one responsibility is to watch the finances in this county. And I fully understand that election integrity comes above it all. The confidence has been seriously violated nationally, statewide. We need voter ID. You have to use ID for everything, even to get into both parties' conventions through the door. We need an election day, not an election week. And there's no doubt about it that they violated their own rules in the last election by allowing a lot of things coming back to where afterwards, after 8 p.m. But we can't spend taxpayers' dollars fighting something that the statute didn't give us the authority to do. Now, I'm in favor of a compromise. I'm in favor of looking at a different way of doing this. And there are ways. There's 2 ways that I've been informed. And we'll have that discussion. But I think that we can please the majority of the people. But to have it on the ballot is not one. The statute doesn't permit it. We'll definitely lose the case. That's coming from multiple councils. So there's no sense of pursuing that and wasting money that we know we're going to lose in the long run. That's just not good government. It's not smart on our behalf. It's not why you put us here. But we will look at these other options. I voiced one of those options today. There are 2 commissioners. We'll discuss it further. I feel very strongly about it. They know where I stand. I think there's a compromise that both systems can work. Who would not want in this county or this state to have checks and balances? Checks and balances.
Cheaters.
To have a electronic system followed by manual count. It's checking each, one checking the other. And I understand it's going to cost a little bit more money, but we have what they call Act 88 now, and we're getting monies from Act 88 that can help fund that. So it's a discussion we're going to have. The reason why we're here today, somebody mentioned that we're having too many meetings. I'm the one that schedules these meetings. This is about the people. It's about transparency. It's about making sure that we get it right. And we're not doing something behind the scenes that people are disagreeing with. Having people have their say up at the podium. That's what government's about. Both sides talking. And trying to reach a resolution. The reason why we're here today is because we got this letter from the Department of State. And we checked into it all weekend. The statute prohibits us. The Hobbs Act, I think we can fight that, but we're not going to win the statute. So, again, we'll have a discussion here about how we can go about this to make sure that we get that confidence back in the election, because that confidence has been seriously damaged. We want to make sure people understand that in Lycoming County, at least when you go to make your vote, it's counting and it's being done right. And we have the best poll workers in the state. I'll stand behind them. They're the most dedicated people. No reflection on them. Forrest does an outstanding job, whether you agree with him or not. He's also made a statement, there isn't a candidate he isn't going to go to jail for. And I believe that. He has a lot of integrity, and I stand by him. He has to reach out to his solicitor, he has to reach out to his angles, and then bring us the information they receive for us to make the decisions. But ultimately, the decisions come down to us.
Are you finished?
Yeah, for the moment.
So, just so you understand, we take an oath when we're sworn into office, right? And what the oath says is that we'll uphold the Constitution, both the state and federal constitutions. Well, the county government and county leaders are creatures of state government. We are subservient in many ways to state government. What does that mean? It means we can only do what state government gives us the authority to do. I'll give you an example. All of us have been concerned about property taxes. All of us are concerned about people living on fixed incomes and property taxes rising. Some of us would like to say, well, why can't we in Lycoming County have a sales tax to offset our property taxes? We don't have authority to do it. We have no authority as county commissioners to just say to the state, we're disregarding what you've told us to do, and we're going to put in effect a 2% or a 1% sales tax, and we're going to lower our property taxes proportionately. So when I said last week we didn't have the authority to do this, I said it because in looking at the state statute does not give county commissioners the right to put this on the ballot as a referendum. And it would be irresponsible of us to move forward with a court case just to say, well, we're going to fight back and spend taxpayer dollars fighting a court case that we know, based on legal counsel from multiple sources, telling us we're not going to win. Which is why early on in these meetings I said to you all, are you in the proper forum, or is really the forum the state legislature to deal with some of these? You know, don't assume just because someone is a Democrat or a Republican what they think about a particular issue or who they vote for when they're in a secret ballot, right? Which is the nice thing about what our elections are. Do I have concerns about technology? Absolutely. Absolutely. I also don't want to be called, I don't know how many of you know who the Luddites were. The Luddites were the folks in England when they brought in automatic looms and threw out of work tens of thousands of people who had been weaving by hand. People broke the machines. They destroyed the machines. The Luddite rebellions. So on the one hand, I don't want to be a slave to technology and all that it does to our families with children watching cell phones with mothers and husbands, and myself included, all of us watching cell phones constantly. So I do have concerns about it. And I hope that as long as I'm a breathing adult, I will question it, a breathing person. I'm not going backwards. But having said that, we have to balance sometimes the decisions we make to both find what we might want to do in our hearts or what our constituents might want us to do with the fact that we take an oath and we have to uphold our responsibility under the oath. We can't just say, hell, we're not going to do it. That's what an oath is. So, and I really do think at a certain point, we as a community really need to move ahead. We have serious challenges facing us. I referred to some of the other day, and I'm just going to repeat them. We have a declining population. With that, it's because our families are smaller, because in some ways people have actually had more education, and as education rises, often birth rates go down. It's just a fact of life. People may be not having children later, but our birth rate is down. We have declining population. We have a declining workforce. We need people in this county, right? We have property taxes that are going up, not because we're spending a lot, but because we have more area that's being taken up by non-taxable entities. And again, that is a fight that has to be fought in Harrisburg about what happens when a community has such a high proportion of nonprofits relative to its tax base that the burden becomes very hard. So we have all these challenges facing us, and at a certain point, we have to say, not that we're just going to not question election integrity, but that we're going to move on and find a way to solve the problems in our community so that we don't wind up literally disappearing from the map. I'm not from rural Pennsylvania. I grew up in an area on Long Island where there is sprawl. But my worry about rural America is that it's literally going to disappear, both because it lacks votes in legislatures all across the country, but also because of the declining population and the squeeze on jobs, workforce, and so forth. So I'm just saying to you, let's find a way to have a continued understanding that what we do and what we say affects our ability to work together. And look, many of you know, some of you don't. I fought a battle over the hotel tax. This room was filled with people just like this. You can imagine my surprise when I get elected as a county commissioner and I can't get the 2 votes I need to do a forensic audit of a hotel tax that consumes millions of dollars. Where's the money going? And I was doing it on behalf of constituents. But sometimes we have to say we're going to fight, we're going to live and fight another day, but we're going to keep moving on and keep fighting for principles and keep making sure that we are ultimately looking at the overall good of the community. So I ask you to just think about that and take that when you leave today with whatever happens here.
Good question for the solicitor. We have to make a motion, or can the Board of Commissioners just make, or the Board of Elections make a decision? If we choose at any point to move ahead with a hand count of the 2020 election, a percentage or 100%, or moving ahead that we can keep the electronic equipment in place and do a hand count as a check and measure, we have to do that at a public meeting, or can we make a decision for Board of Elections?
To answer your question, that would be a public meeting decision.
Okay. So we need further discussion on that at a public meeting. Okay.
Commissioners, I would like to make a statement as well if there are a few minutes available.
Yes, feel free to.
I had actually prepared a pretty detailed defense of the polling place change in Loyalsock 1, but the comments went a different direction, so I'm going a little off the cuff here. I do want to thank any poll workers who are here. I know I have some who are here, it's been said before, but ever since Act 77 and the changeover in our voting equipment in 2019 and COVID, their plates have become more and more full. Their jobs have become more complicated. And I respect them and the work they do enormously. And I know that because I'm the one who's had to train them, you know, and teach them all the new things that have been happening. So I do appreciate them and the work that they've done. There is a lot that has been said today. A lot of it is not directly bearing on the content of today's meeting, and I don't have time to discuss all of it, and I'm not going to attempt to. But I did want to make, just in general, a few observations. One of them is that I think back about the educations we all got in school growing up about how government works. You know, executive and legislative and judicial branches, separation of powers, checks and balances. And for all of that education that we might have gotten about how government works, you think about the fact that we never really got any education about how elections work. How do we put people in public office? And part of the problem with educating the public about how elections work is that you can't come up with one curriculum, because some of elections are handled at the federal level, Some of it is handled at the local level. A lot of it is handled at the state level. It's part of a debate, a discussion, a philosophical problem that we've had in this country for 200 years. You know, the federalism debate. What tasks, what jobs are best handled by the federal or the state or the local level of government? And elections are no different. You could point out your policy area. The same debates are there, and we're not going to settle that today, obviously. But it's part of that push and that pull, and sometimes we're going to run into conflicts and tensions between those levels of government and what they have to say about elections that comes into conflict. And it is not surprising to me at all that when you talk about a policy area like elections, where the practices are complicated, they are arcane, they vary significantly from state to state, that at that point you are going to have a lot of people for whom that lack of understanding can evolve. It can manifest as confusion. Eventually it can even manifest as anger and suspicion. And I know at the county level, we do the very best we can to represent what we do to the public. My door has been open, it always will be open, to answer questions, to engage in good faith discussions with the public about how elections work and the work that we do. But I also will always have to defend the integrity of what we do, because I believe that our work does have integrity. I believe that we are conducting good elections in Lycoming County. We count every lawful vote in every election in this county. I've been doing this for 9 years. Sometimes it feels like a million, but the work is important, and we absolutely do that. So to people here today who are concerned about whether the ballot they cast in any election was counted, the answer is that it was. And the question has been posed, how can you have trust or faith in the electronic voting system that we use? And my answer to that is that I don't have trust or faith, quote unquote, in that equipment. What I have is a belief in its accuracy that is supported by evidence, years of evidence now, since we began using it in 2019. That belief is not taken for granted. It is reevaluated before every election in the form of the testing that we do of every function of that equipment before we have an election. It is tested again after every election in the form of recounts that we do of multiple batches of ballots, in the form of hand counts that we do of multiple batches of ballots. No, it is not 100%, but it is a significant percent. And so those processes that are completed before and after every election are how we reevaluate, re-ascertain that the equipment produces consistently accurate results. And finally, the point was raised about the voter registration rolls. We absolutely take every action that is possible and that is required by federal law, in that case the National Voter Registration Act, to ensure that our voter rolls are accurate. We cannot go any further than what the NVRA permits, and we cannot do any less than what is required. However, when you talk about a county of 71,000 people, the voter registration system is a river. It flows every day because people's lives are changing every day. We have new people getting registered. People get married, they change their names, they move away, they move within the county. People eventually die, all those changes have to be made. People don't always let us know when those changes happen. And so any county, any jurisdiction anywhere in this country, you are always following behind, trying to catch up with changes that are happening in people's lives. That's not evidence of fraud. That's just evidence that life is messy, that those processes can be messy, but we are doing everything that is possible and required by the law to make sure that those records are as accurate as possible. If you have any additional questions about the issues that were raised at the previous meeting, I can certainly try to answer those, but I did want to make just those few remarks.
Then I'll just close with this statute being the way it is. I think there are ways we can still work this out through a compromise. And I've stated my personal views where I can't see where anyone would argue a check and balance system. Where you have the electronic stuff still in place and you have a manual recount to double check it. We all want voter integrity. We all want to restore that confidence. So we'll continue to have this conversation. Regarding the action item, it's on number 5. The board's action to place a referendum on the November 2022 general election ballot to continue the use of electronic voting system, namely pending petitions on the issue. Is there a motion?
In order to protect what I think is the fiscal responsibility of this county, I'm going to move to take the referendum that's set for the November 22 general election ballot off. Well, I shouldn't say to take it off. It hasn't been put on yet. To rescind the action taken by the board at the meeting on September 6th with regard to the referendum.
Before I second that motion, I just want to tell the people on both sides, but primarily the ones that have worked getting these petitions, that I don't take this lightly, and that your work has not gone down in vain. You need to understand that according to law, and I'm with Rick, honest to God, I'm with Rick. I'm not sure how close we are, but how do we continue to lose the integrity of elections and not stand up here and challenge it and let them be the ones to put a preliminary injunction on us? We lose. I mean, we did work hard to get a ruling over the weekend, but it did not go in vain. I truly believe, after discussing with our solicitor and with Forrest and the other commissioners, that we are going to make sure we do things different in Lycoming County by either increasing the sampling of the votes or 100%, by going back to the 2020 elections, of which we have the ability to do that as a board, to validate those votes, whether it's then, in the present, or in the future. I believe that we will count those ballots, paper ballots. So with that being said, I will second the motion.
I don't know if you can do that today. Can you do that vote today?
Excuse me.
How can you vote to disregard the referendum vote today, not in a public meeting, but you can't vote to for the change that you want to make? How can you do that at this time?
This is to take this off the ballot, this vote.
That's what I'm saying,
Right.
Scott.
How can you vote for that and not in a public meeting, but you can't vote for a change you possibly might be making?
That would be at a separate meeting. If there would be an additional change in the future, that would be in a separate meeting on another agenda.
It's because the advertised
Right, we have to advertise
action on the agenda for today
Solely
is
this.
to deal with the referendum.
Thank you.
that. Yeah, that would be at a future meeting, we would put that on the agenda with the way we were looking at discussing it. Okay, Kathy?
I just want to say, all of you, we don't envy your position, and we thank you. And as a group, if you look around the room, a good part was the Patriots. And I would like to encourage all of our members to keep an open dialogue with all of you and work with you and support you, because we need you. So, thank you.
You know, this isn't who's against who, this is working together. So we get a solution that we're not getting these, and again, these letters can come to us all they want. Frankly, I don't care, they can mail 100 of these letters. But when we research it and find out from chief counsel that, you know, this is the route we have to go, then we have to go that route, because we're gonna lose taxpayers' money. Yes.
Okay.
Just one question, because we're in the middle of making a motion and a vote.
One question, because
Yes.
the letter was dated September 9th, and it
Yes.
has to be answered by the 13th. That was a Friday, and we got the letter, and you have only the rest of Friday, Monday, and then Tuesday. It doesn't seem like it's very much time to make such a decision.
Well, time's of the essence because of the elections coming up here. And I think that's the reason why,
It just seems like it's needed
Yeah.
to break down someone's throat.
that's why we worked on this over the weekend.
The ballots have to be printed.
Yeah.
And that is part of the reason. It takes time to print them, and then they have to be proofed, and if there's a mistake, they've got to be reprinted, and there has to be a certain amount of time to do all that.
But again,
But that's what it is, Bonnie.
I think there's a way we can restore the confidence, any integrity, by working together and coming up with a solution through this, where the State Department won't be sending us a letter because they'll be out of their bounds.
And as far as compromise is concerned, sir, I want to say that if the state can come in and tell us, hey, we're not going to do this, and then you guys say yes financially, we're not going to fight a losing battle. I respect that completely. But in the, you know, when you say compromise, I love hearing 100% of, like, the machines count 100%, then we count 100%. And who are they counted with? You know, you guys said before, we won't let volunteers do that. That's not appropriate. Okay, then are you able to tell us who they are counted and from? Who are they counted by? And how far do the people have to, you know, there's all these things that have happened. You know, we didn't have the right representation. There's this distance. So taking into, we don't want a sample. Just saying, I'm going to come right out and say that. Please don't say sample. If we have to compromise because the state's coming in and putting this heavy hand on us, then we want, you know, 100% of what you can give us and what we've asked for. So we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
And again, it goes back to the statute.
Okay.
The state legislators have not given us the authority to put it on.
Right. Yep, I
So
understand.
that's
Thank you for
That's where
everything.
we're stuck this morning.
Yes.
You know, as far as us counting here in Lycoming County, I mean, we get voter participation anywhere from 27% to as high as 70%, right? Depending on what we can do that.
We can do that.
But, you know, my confidence is destroyed by listening to other counties.
Yeah.
How about Lycoming County?
Yes.
And so it's got to be broader. And it just has to be broader. It's like when I presented my election integrity to you at the meeting, and there's 243 drop boxes, of which 11 of them were unsecured playgrounds in Philadelphia. That's an issue, you know, where you can drop off hundreds of ballots in the dark at any time. And think about this. Are they secure? No. You open them up just like a mailbox. I could pour gasoline in there and light it on fire. How is my ballot secured there? Okay, I mean, that's the broader issue that, we have to fix. So.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Massar?
Yes.
Commissioner Marabito?
Yes.
And Commissioner Metzger? Yes. Carried 3-0. Okay, still public comment on the agenda. If you want to make a statement, you feel free to. Just limit your comments to 3 minutes. Go ahead.
If I may, Commissioners, I want to again thank you for the time and the diligence and everyone who has participated in this, and I will repeat that this is not a tearing apart of the fabric of our community. This is a joining together to make our voices heard and to express our concerns, so thank you for that. I respect the fact and the position you've been put in by the Department of State and the system and the hand that we've been dealt with. It doesn't seem to be a very fair hand, but we are becoming aware of the challenges that are presented to us. So there's no loss here because we're continuing to learn. We're continuing to work toward better government in our community, and I will argue every day that all representation and all government starts from the bottom up. I believe that that is where our founding fathers were at when they set this process in motion. We are not a top-down government. We are a bottom-up government. So I applaud everyone for your efforts today. I don't want to take you completely off the hook. This has been a long and arduous process, and understanding how the agenda was prepared today, I think that we could have moved forward and brought this thing to an end today. That's just my personal feeling. I've dealt in local government for a long time. There simply would have needed to be added another line to consider remedies if appropriate, based on the motion that was taken today. So we're going to probably ask for a lot more of pro gratis time from our residents to come down here and have another meeting. Respect what you did, but I think we could have gotten there today, and you have your reasons, we have ours. And again, I don't want to take away anything for what you've done today and your courage, and we want to continue to support you to stand up against the overrule and overreach of government. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marabito, Commissioner Metzger, Commissioner Massera. I just want to say that although the outcome of today might not be to the satisfaction of everybody, including myself, but I do understand why you voted the way you did. The only other thing I have to say is when you make your decision on the alternative way of doing things, it cannot be pick and choose of which ballots to count by hand. It needs to be 100% count. And that way it can be cross-referenced with the machine and we can bring back the integrity of the voting in Lycoming County. And I'm not saying that because there's not integrity in Lycoming County. I'm saying that because of the belief by people that they're not sure of the integrity of Lycoming County.
The confidence has been damaged.
Exactly. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Ron?
Sure.
Do you think that if that was done 100%, it would be need to be done in perpetuity, meaning forever? Or do you think if it were done for a couple of elections, it would restore the confidence?
You're gonna be able to restore the confidence by doing it in a couple elections. Once you stop it, the confidence is gonna go away again. It would have to be done for every election. It's something that the commissioners can, if it costs extra money, they can budget it. You budget everything in the county, budget that. I'm sure Forrest has a budget to follow, and like I said when I spoke before, I know that the county got a grant for money to help with election integrity. Use it to count.
Thank you.
Greg?
Yes, I'd just like to add to that. My thought is if you do a sample hand count, or if you even do the whole thing and you're only going to do it for one election cycle, you're basically telegraphing your move to the hackers. So the hackers aren't going to hack if they know we're going to hand count the entire thing, or if we telegraph which precincts we're going to do. If we telegraph that for the 2022 election, then they're not going to hack. Obviously, they know we're going to hand count. So back to Ron's point, we should hand count the entire, every precinct, every election. Or if you were going to do a sample, then I would say do the sample, pick the precincts after the election. Don't telegraph which precincts. But I just think that Ron made a good point. Do it all or do nothing. So, okay, thank
Greg,
you.
I don't think we telegraph now which ones.
No, that's correct.
Just so you know, we don't telegraph ahead of time now.
Oh, okay,
Which
well,
ones.
that's
It's
good. I
totally-
didn't, and that goes back to what Forrest is saying. The schools don't do a very good job of educating us on elections.
We conduct an audit after every election that takes two forms. One is a recount of a few batches of ballots. Could be a precinct, could be a precinct's mail ballots. They're counted on different equipment than how they were originally counted. And then the other audit is a hand count of an individual contest, and we pick a couple batches. All of that selection of contests, batches, is done at random. It's not known until after the election what those are going to be.
Okay, well, just for the record, I'm in favor of hand counting all of them, 100% every election. Thank you.
Hi. Listening to the questions here, I have a question myself. Dave Kennedy from Hughesville. Is there a way, it was mentioned previously, just a minute ago, about wanting to kind of measure up the electronically counted ballots against any hand recounted ballots? That's impossible because the electronically counted ballots have no way to be matched up, as we all know. They're just put through the machine with no identity attached to that ballot. There's no way to know with any accuracy whatsoever, is there? If you have one ballot for one and one ballot for another, or a pile of ballots here that were counted electronically and a pile of ballots here that were counted manually, there's no way to match those up exactly anyway, is there?
There is.
There is.
When I talk about batches of ballots, that has a very specific procedural and legal meaning, which is to say that those ballots exist as a grouping. So when you have a precinct worth of Hughesville 1, their precinct ballots are scanned together. They are associated together within the voting system so that you can report that out and see, okay, well, according to the voting system, these are the total votes cast for all the different candidates on the ballot, only within Hughesville 1's election day ballots. And you can have a batch that's Hughesville 1's mail ballots, they're provisional ballots, whatever. And knowing what those results are, you can then go back, you can open that ballot container. Again, Hughesville 1, they're gonna get picked on here. And you could hand count a contest, you could hand count multiple contests, which is exactly what we do in a post-election audit, or in a recount for that matter, and know if the results of the hand count match what the voting system produced. And in the 3 years we've been using our paper-based voting system, at every step along the way, where a pre-election test was conducted, or where a post-election audit was conducted, either by machine or by hand, or where we've conducted a full statewide recount, as we did after November 21, and again in the Republican Senate primary here in May 22. At every one of those steps along the way, the recounts reconfirmed the results that the voting equipment produced.
And you do pre-election testing?
Yes, absolutely. We generate, we mark an entire universe of ballots. It can be thousands of ballots, but they are intended to create an easily recognizable pattern. You know, that we know what those results are supposed to be based on how we mark the ballots, so that when we run those ballots through the equipment, they go through the central scanners, they go through the precinct scanners, that we are looking to see those same results come out when the equipment counts them, that we created when we marked the ballots.
Are these machines connected in any way to the internet?
No.
Could they be connected to the internet?
The precinct scanners do not have any port on them. They don't have wireless connectivity. I can't speak authoritatively about every voting system in the Commonwealth, you know, if it happens to have some.
But here in Lycoming County?
No.
When we send them to the state, are they via internet?
Oh, the election results? Yeah, so we transmit election results to the state, but those results are moved off of, in election administration, we refer to it as an air-gapped computer. When we talk about a computer that is not connected to the internet, there's no cord connecting it. Those results are moved off the air-gapped computer. They are moved on to a county PC, and that is when they are able to be transmitted to Department of State. They are able to be posted online at that point.
I would think that would be a pretty important thing for the county commissioners to have known previous to this.
We did that.
I asked the question for you.
Great. If there were any kind of discrepancy, what then? We have election day, not election week, as you mentioned. What happens if there is a discrepancy?
There is a process for that. One of the audits I described is what's called a risk limiting audit. And in that process, the batches are being randomly selected. It's a statewide audit. So the state is reviewing manifest that all the counties have provided to say, these are all the batches we have, this is how many ballots are in each batch. They actually roll a bunch of dice in a public ceremony or public event to basically create seeds for what batches will be selected. And then they tell the individual county, these are the 2 or 3 batches we want you to hand count. We do that, report those back to the state. And if there was a circumstance, as you described, where after that first round of the audit, the results were not sufficient to confirm that the outcome of the contest was correct, it would be possible to proceed to another round. So the state could tell counties, well, we're going to direct you to count additional batches. Here they are. And we would count as many as would be needed to arrive at. The way the risk limiting audit works is you're arriving at a 95% degree of confidence that the outcome of the election was correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
I'll just take a minute. I would just like to encourage.
Just state your name, please.
Oh, my name is
We know you
Catherine
are, but-
Burns. Yeah, Catherine Burns, Muncie, Pennsylvania. I would just like to ask each one of you up here if you would take the time to watch the documentary by Dinesh D'Souza and Catherine Engelbrecht called 2,000 Mules. Many of the comments that were made here, the situations that were addressed, are addressed in that documentary. So I have nothing to do with the Genetti, but it is being shown at 6:30 on the 29th. But if you cannot make that, please make it a point. If you want the video, I will provide it for you. But please, each one of you, please, would you kindly look at that documentary? Thank you.
Don?
My name again? Don Peters, Cummings Township. Just want to thank you, commissioners, all of you, for your helping us understand more. You've done a great job at that. Just appreciate that. I'll just be very quick. But Forrest, since that discussion was on the instruments and the machines, and I'll take your attention back, and you probably were aware of this. In September of 2020, in the city of Philadelphia, there were thumb drives stolen out of machines, and no one really ever knows, as far as I know, what happened. Do we use thumb drives in our systems at all here?
Well, I certainly can't comment on something that happened in another jurisdiction.
No, I'm not asking. Do we use thumb drives in our systems up here?
So our precinct scanners do employ thumb drives. They use two. They are locked and sealed, I should note, inside that compartment during the day.
Right, but they're programmed, and I'm guessing the scanners have to be programmed or updated or whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
so the machines are programmed, and it is once those drives are in place, it tells the scanner what precinct it is, and it will only accept ballots, official ballots from that precinct.
And I'll just be frank, this isn't, no trick questions here, seriously. But I will say this, my experience, and it's a suspicion is, even where you're putting thumb drives into any system, it has the right to do things that you will never know what it's doing. So that's one of the, I'm just trying to paint a picture here. I'll say it again, we think you've done a great job. You really, there's no commentary towards you. We disagree on this, and you believe they're 100% secure. We're just not sure of that. So that's where this is about. And you gentlemen, Scott and Tony, if you'll recall, I take you back to April, you gave me time in your office. We discussed, we talked about it, and I told you this freight train was coming. And it's going to take the people to be able to see the ballots, to placate them, not to satisfy them, but more importantly, not to disenfranchise them, and for them to stay home on election day because the system is not fair in their minds. And we agree, we had that conversation, and here we are today. Now we're dealing with this. And so I just want to say one more thing. I mentioned this when I spoke earlier, and I'm going to end with this. I want to be careful here because I'm not trying to alienate any vendor that the county uses. My expectation is, and I know we've had a number of hearings in Lycoming County Court over these things. You're aware of that too. My concern is when the people from Lycoming County come up, my expectation is the law firm that the county employs will be standing up for the people and not sitting with the state fighting against us. That's my expectation. And some of those we outright won. We were on the right side of the law, and we saw them fighting against us. And frankly, sirs, I have an issue with that. I really do. And so I don't expect them to bow to, I expect them to tell you the truth. And they're counselors for a reason. But in cases, especially we flat out win, that's an indication that there's something wrong when they're aligned with some other entity outside of the county, which in that case was the Department of State, as I recall. Same thing. And my expectation is going forward that they'll at least maintain a neutral stance on these types of things. We are county residents, and we support all of you. We really do. We support, and we want all of us to succeed as a county together. But that's just my thought on that, sirs. Okay?
Don,
Yes, sir.
we hire attorneys because we're not attorneys.
I get-
We don't ask them to remain neutral. We ask them for the law.
I get that, but the
And that's the only way we can make good decisions based off. And then if we don't like what we're hearing, then we have the option to bring in another attorney.
Which we did in this case.
True, absolutely. It was great. It was an excellent decision on your part. As usual, but the point I'm making is that even down to the law saying that we are permitted to see copies, or actually permitted to see the mail-in ballots, we had to fight for that. Why? Why are we fighting against a law firm that we hire? That's my question. So things like, I'm just asking you to consider that because we want your support, and frankly, I think we have it. Even Commissioner Marabito, I think we have your support because you want to do what's right. And at the end of the day, we all do. But at the same time, we don't want to be fighting an uphill battle against a contractor that we've hired to do the right thing. That's all I'm saying. And thank you. I think you guys have split the baby here. You have the wisdom of Solomon. And I think that's a great decision.
We didn't hire a second law firm. What we did is we just reached out to a state legislator who then said, well, let's get somebody else to take a look at it so we can get a second opinion. And that came from the chief counsel down there, and they agreed, especially on the statute. They differed on the one point, but they disagreed on the statute.
And I'm not making myself clear. What you did in this series of events, I think you guys are right on the money. It was great. It was great. I'm talking about the previous court appearances that we've had in this county. We've had a fight uphill battle. So this one, but the guys have done a great job, and I think your decision today is very wise. Thank you. I'll respect it.
You know, we mentioned money, protecting the taxpayers, and in this particular group said, we would fight this for you without Lycoming County taxpayers' money.
John O'Neill, Upper Fairfield. I think you just answered one of my questions, Commissioner Metzger. You folks are the ones that contacted the state and for guidance. Okay, because I was wondering. I thought maybe this room had a video recorder going back to Governor Wolf. But my second item is that what I take away from this meeting is that according to that HAVA, we can't put something as a referendum on the ballot unless we get approval from the state. Is that correct?
State legislators.
No, that's not.
No, it needs to be legislated.
It has to be legislated, yes.
It has to be approved by the state legislators.
That's my understanding of Jeff.
Has to be not approved. It's not, you're not asking them. They have to write the law.
They have to write the law to give us the authority.
That's right. That's my understanding.
Right, that's my understanding too.
Well,
So just a
we have
couple,
our solicitors.
Wait a minute, how did all the other referendums get put on there?
With all due respect, sir, I think your question, the way you asked it, made it sound like you were asking about all referendum.
Correct.
That would not be the case. The issue here is this particular ballot referendum.
Okay.
And so their answer was specific to that. With respect to who contacted the state, there was a newspaper article that ran in the Williamsport Sun-Gazette about the meeting. The state read the newspaper. That was the trigger for the call. They didn't call the state.
No, we didn't call
They didn't seek the state's guidance in this matter. They sought their own counsel, whether it's through our office or other offices, and they made the decision that they made. The fact that the state reached out to us was a function of the newspaper article in the Sun-Gazette, and that's what prompted the call.
All right, thank you.
so just to clarify, so there are caucuses in the House. There's the Republican caucus and the Democratic caucus. And those are the legislators in the Republican and Democratic Party. Those caucuses have attorneys. And from what I understand, they reached out to the attorney for the Republican caucus.
We reached out to the state legislator in our area, and he said, let me reach out to the chief counsel.
For the Republican caucus.
And let him review everything and get a opinion of his. So that's what happened.
Okay.
Now, I actually didn't know they were doing it, and it's okay. I'm not upset by it. I didn't ask the Democratic caucus to look into it just because I didn't think it was necessary, because if you remember when I was here last week, I thought
You
that the
got the
staff.
emails from the legislator.
I did, no, I'm not saying anything was withheld from me. I'm just, I didn't
It was his
see.
choice to reach out to try to get some help.
No, they're talking about Representative Ham.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't see an email from Representative Ham, but it doesn't matter. I'm not, it's like, I'm just trying to get people to understand what happened so they don't think it was someone from the Department of State when you say the state attorney. It was someone from the Republican caucus. So presumably, they would be giving information that would be, from the perspective of someone who wants it done, more confident. If you didn't have confidence in the county
On the
solicitor.
state statute, they agree with the Department of State.
Right, they agreed with the Department of State.
Yeah.
I have one quick question, can be directed towards Mr. Lehman, correct? Okay. So with the mail-in ballots, specifically the ones from 2020, first and foremost. Do you, and the question is coming from, hearing that envelopes were separated from the ballot itself. In Lycoming County, how are they handled? Do we store them separate? I mean, once they're separated, is that over? Or, do you have them paper clipped together somewhere? So I guess that's what my question is.
So when we talk about voting by mail, it's, I think one point that often gets lost in the shuffle, because we took a lot of calls about this back in 2020. People receiving maybe multiple applications in the mail from parties, candidates, outside organizations. That's probably already starting up for the midterms, so get ready for that. The applications are not the same as ballots. And so when applications come in, it has to be linked to an active voter registration record inside the voter registration system. So if someone sends back more than one application, which sometimes they do that, the extra applications get rejected as duplicates. So there's only one active application on somebody's record at a time that then creates a label, goes on the envelope for them. That label has a barcode on it. So when we send them their ballot, there's a 3-envelope system. There's an outer envelope that's what they see when they open the mailbox. But when they open that up, they will see their ballot is in there. There is a secrecy envelope in there. It's a plain white envelope that just says official election ballot on the front. The voted mail ballot goes in there when they finish with it. That secrecy envelope goes inside an official return envelope that we provide. It is addressed back to the county. It has that voter's name and address, and it has a barcode that ties right back to their record in the voter registration system. Those voted ballots have to be returned to us in that official return envelope. If it comes in any other way, it's not getting opened, it's not getting counted. We have to receive that official envelope. We ascertain that they have signed it. In the past, we've ascertained that they dated it, but that's subject to another mountain of litigation I won't get into. And then, on election day, when we are permitted to begin what's called pre-canvassing those mail ballots, that is when we are able to make a final determination that a mail ballot has been lawfully cast, it's by a registered voter, it's an official return envelope, all those things are in order. We are then able to open those envelopes. At that point, the secrecy envelopes are separated from the return envelopes, and that is when the ballots become anonymous, as they are required to be by the state constitution. So people need to be able to cast a secret ballot that cannot be tied back to them. So only after we have made sure that it is a valid registered voter, it is a valid lawful ballot, only then are those ballots made anonymous. That's when all the envelopes get opened up, mixed up, and then the ballots are able to finally be scanned. The envelopes themselves are saved. Our standard practice is the ballots for Hughesville, poor Hughesville 1, for Hughesville 1 or whatever precinct it is, they are stored. The opened outer envelopes and the opened secrecy envelopes for that same precinct are kept together with those ballots. However, at that point, you could no longer be able to connect an envelope back to the ballot that it came in, because they're all mixed up.
Okay. I believe we satisfied everybody's public comments. Any online?
None.
Okay. We've completed the agenda, so the meeting is adjourned. And we thank everyone for coming, and we continue to ask for open dialogue in the future. Thank you.
Tell her. Found her one day. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, we wrote together. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Can I hold it until we get home? I think I can try. I don't, does that matter? Can you find out that way too?
You had it.
Would you like me to give you a copy of the letter?
Yes.
Start with the state, right after the
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.